Happy Saturday, everyone. Today, we're going to be talking about, or actually reacting to a video, a debate that happened recently on Modern Day Debate. And you can see it. The name of the debate is Does God Exist? And this is between Mr. Biscuit Speaks, who's a theist, and Danny Field Talk, who's an atheist. And I haven't seen it. I don't know what the arguing points are just yet, but I'll be interested to see it. I already know in advance that the atheists already won because I'm an atheist too. So automatically, obviously, the theist is going to come with a dumb argument, right? We already know that. We just assume that it's who's the loser and who's the winner before. I mean, that's a no-brainer, right? Just playing. Just kidding. Well, look, I've been holding my bladder, so let's get at her. All right, we're back. And no one's in the live stream, watching the live stream yet, it appears. So I'll just kind of wait till some folks fall in before I start up. Wait till a few people join us. Also, Sophia's going to be joining us too here in a moment. So we'll wait on Miss Sophia the Mystic to come on through with her ideas, also her reaction to this video. A theist, Mr. Biscuit Speaks, he's a theist, and Danny Field Talk, who's an atheist. I've seen Danny Field Talk on a few of the atheist podcasts, like I think Atheist Experience or The Line, something like that. I've seen him speak, seen him talk. I haven't really seen Mr. Biscuit Speaks all that much, although I think he did a debate with Tom Jump some time ago, a couple years ago, I think it was. And he does really good. And just coming across some of his content, I see that he's also an idealist like me, but he's a theist. So this should be interesting. So I think that he may make an idealist sort of argument for God existing. I'm not sure. Right now, I'm not really sure how to connect myself. How do I connect a God's existence with a philosophy like idealism? I'm not sure how to do that because there's a lot of atheists who are idealists like myself, agnostics rather. Also, maybe you'll say, well, the principle of non-duality is what points to God because everything is everything and this everything is called God. Maybe something like that. I don't know. But you can be a non-dualist and be a physicalist or an atheist as well, like me. I'm not a physicalist, but I'm an atheist. So it doesn't really follow in my understanding. Now, I may be wrong. Maybe it's a semantical sort of thing. But I don't know if that's the argument he's going to put forward, though. So we'll see. But it's just some things I thought. And I'd like to see, I really would hope that he would make the idealistic argument, because I would be really curious to see how idealism sort of implies theism without just reifying phenomena into an identity like a God person, especially like a Christian God. Because I think he's a Christian, if I remember right. He was a Christian arguing with T-Jump on the existence of God. So how does idealism get us to the Christian God? Maybe that's what he's going to present. I don't know. I'll be very interested to see how he ties that together, if that would be the case. I'm hoping that is. I really had to keep myself from looking too much into the video because I want to react live with you guys, this whole thing, right? So if you're out there, let me know. Say hello. Let me know if you guys are out there. I can start the video shortly. I kind of wanted to wait till my co-host gets on. Again, there's sometimes technical issues that we have to deal with. And so like right now, my production manager is a kitty cat. Her name is Moxie. And she's not very good at her job, unfortunately. She doesn't make things happen like I wish she would. Like, I think she should do more than just what she does is basically look at me as like a 6-foot can opener. That's not nice. I feel used and abused. Do something for me, like step my channel up. Help me get subscribers because I need them. But since she won't do it, please, if you're new here and you're stumbling across this channel, like and subscribe to this channel. I want to get guests on here like Mr. Biscuit Speaks or Danny Phil Talk. If I have more subscribers and people like that, this channel is more popular. Of course, I'm able to get, some really cool guests and things like that. And then I also might be able to do debates, on a lot of these big platforms, but they just want you to, they want you to have so many views and so many subscribers. And, there's becoming a threshold with a lot of this stuff, I'm told. So I'm just looking for likes and subscribes. Like me, please. Please like me. But yeah, man, if we can do stuff like that, that would be fucking awesome. And again, if you're like a materialist, a physicalist, a Christian, a Muslim, come on the show. Let me know if you want to debate about any sort of topic. People like debates. And I'm here to give the people what they want, man, if I can. And I have a lot of people I know here that would like to debate those topics. I can debate sometimes. I'm not opposed to that either. So if you want to debate me or Sophia or anyone here, just a friendly debate, let's do it, man. People like debates. It seems to be something people like to watch. So that'd be cool, man. Or if you just want to come on the stage and voice your opinions, have a discussion, we can do that too. I usually put the links up after we do reactions to these videos or we go into our conversation or whatever. We open the stage up, so we'll do that. So it's 100% interactive here, right? So I'll put the link in the live chat here in a bit, and you guys can come on stage and give your thoughts one way or the other to the topic for today, which is the reaction to this video. Does God exist, with Mr. Biscuit Speaks versus Danny Phil Talk? Yeah, well, I'll give you my thoughts. Sophia, give her thoughts as well. I'll give her just a few more minutes to come on in. If not, I'll just go ahead and start the video. Meanwhile, we'll wait to see if some people kind of fall in to join me in seeing this video reaction. And hopefully new people will stumble across my channel. And if you do, like I said, like and subscribe. I'm looking for building the community and doing a lot of cool things here in the future. And I really can do it. I just need, more subscribers and views and all that good stuff. But yeah. So hopefully you guys had a good weekend, a good holiday. Hope your New Year's was really good. Does anybody have any New Year's resolutions out there? Put them in the live chat. What are you seeking to accomplish for 2026? And do you even believe in the value of making New Year's resolutions? Do they really mean anything, or are they kind of like setting you up for failure? Some people feel like, well, you have to speak things into existence. Some people say, well, if you talk about stuff all the time, you never really do it. because the talking takes away your energy from actually doing the shit. Right? What do you think? Do you have any New Year's resolutions that you're going to accomplish this year? I'd like to know. Eager minds want to know. For me, I just, I started a job. It started off good. So I've been unemployed for the last 4 or 5 months. And so I finally start a job next week. Woohoo! I don't know how I even made it these last 4 months, man, but I did it. Man, so now I'm all set. I just need to get back to work and start, having more resources to pour into the channel, and do things really cool, like set up a new camera system or something like that. Things that I may need, lighting. I know that my lighting is horrible here. I want to invest in this channel and make it as best as it can be, among other things. So with that being said, I'm just going to go ahead and start the video. I think Sophia's having a bit of a challenge on her end, but hopefully she'll be able to follow along. So I'm going to go ahead and start this video, and we can listen to the opening, which is from Danny Phil Talk. It looks like I queued it up to that point. So we can go ahead and take a look at the opening for this debate. Does God exist?
Conceptions of God, so there's a discussion about what exactly I'm denying, but I think the argument I'm about to give kind of covers most conceptions, if not all conceptions of God. So one such argument goes something like this. Some people call it the low prize argument, kind of developed by Paul Draper. I think Graham Oppy has kind of flirts with a version of it. And the basic idea is this: if you compare a simple theistic hypothesis, God exists and created the universe and humanity all within it, with a simple atheistic hypothesis, there is no God, and the universe either exists uncaused, has always existed, or arose in some non-theistic way. Before you consider any evidence, the atheistic hypothesis is much more probable. This is because it's compatible with a far wider range of possibilities, whereas the theistic hypothesis offers a very specific causal story among countless alternatives.
Yes, I've heard of this argument before. But even though I'm an atheist, I don't think that this is a really good arguing point, though, because you're going to run into a problem down the line when you talk about other topics. The thing is, like in epistemology, in Bayesian reasoning, what really matters is not how many explanations a worldview can generate, but how well those explanations are supported. Like a theory can always be padded with auxiliary stories, narratives, mechanisms, and without independent justification for each one, additional explanations don't really add probability. Oftentimes they reduce it by increasing complexity. So I don't see, you could just come up with a million horrible explanations that don't make any sense. That doesn't make the probability any more in your favor or not. It doesn't really do anything. You know what I mean? It's the evidence that matters. It's the support. It's how supportive are those arguments that really matters. That's just my thought about this particular line of argumentation so far.
Even if I knew the universe had a cause, it would be instantly unlikely that the cause was precisely the God of theism rather than something else. And then when you add in evidences about minds, how they're really dependent on things like central nervous systems and, kind of delicate in our world, right? Then to think that there's one that, has total control over the phenomena that we observe in the natural world, right? I think that makes it even less probable when you add.
But making that less probable because you've assumed physicalism, that's an assumption that minds depend on brains and nervous systems and stuff like that. That's kind of an assumption that you would have to make. And I'm not saying he can't make that argument, but it seems like that's going to be based on an assumption of physicalism. You know what I mean? So that doesn't really work as an argument on its own until you can make the case that minds depend, or consciousness depends Like, you know, we get into the phenomena versus noumena whole thing, right? Just because what we see within our experience doesn't necessarily equate to the physical ontology of reality, right? Like me seeing this phone right here. I see a phone that's black, it's got icons and this and that. Am I really seeing reality as it is, the noumena, or is that just an interpretation of my mind? And how do I know that? I know of examples that demonstrate that we see things that aren't really representative of reality on other levels. So we already know that doesn't work. So I'm not sure if that argument's really good either so far.
In things like evil or omni properties or anything of the stuff that classical theists sort of flirt with immutability, atemporality, all of that, timelessness, like then the probability goes down to almost zero in some cases, depending on how coherent the conception of God that you have. But that's one of the main reasons why I think I'm an atheist. It covers a lot of the basis for that, but for different conceptions, right? I believe I'm talking to a Christian, so I think that makes it far less likely than other conceptions of God. But yeah, that's a little bit about my position. That's it.
Yeah, and hey, Neil, glad you could join. And hey, Sophia, you're back. Can you hear everything okay? I don't know if she can hear, but Nell says not necessarily. I think you could make the idea.
Yeah, I hear you now.
Okay, awesome. So Nell says, I think you could make an idealistic argument for needing complexity for a mind like the God of the Bible. Trying to understand that. I may be slow, Nell. Can you rephrase that somehow? I'm not really sure what you mean. Not really sure. How you doing, Sophia? Were you able to catch any of the videos so far?
No, I had to reset the network, unfortunately. But I know what you told me about it earlier, so I'll catch up.
Okay. Yeah, so just to let you know, there's a little lag still, but hopefully it'll straighten out here. But I'll go ahead and let you know what happened. The atheist, I went over his opening, and he's basically saying that the more probabilities you have of an explanation makes it more probable that you'll arrive at the truth of a claim, basically. Which I'm not really sure if that's the issue or not, or if that's a really good argument. But anyways, I'll keep on going. This time, Mr. Biscuit Speaks will give his opening. So I'll go ahead and go here.
Thank you very much for that opening. We'll kick it over to Mr. Biscuit Speaks. Glad to have you here as well. The floor is all yours.
Thank you. First of all, thanks to Modern Day Debate, obviously, for agreeing to host the discussion. Thanks for Danny, too, for that opening. I think it's an important conversation. And I'll admit that when I first received the email to do this debate, it was New Year's Eve, and I was on my third glass of wine. I felt a lot more confident then. And, now that the confidence is worn off, I think, I'll throw out a few half-baked dichotomies and see how Danny does with them. So my first assertion is that either what is fundamental to reality is conscious or not, right? That simple sentence satisfies all the conditions of a genuine dichotomy, which means one side of that dichotomy and not the other is definitely true. My second assertion is that the belief that consciousness emerges from non-conscious material, which is typically what the atheist says. I mean, Danny and I will discuss that. That's equivalent to a belief in magic. And when I say magic, I don't mean something which only seems like magic because we lack the data or because neuroscience is young. I mean, believing that requires a leap of faith that is not intelligible in terms of your explanatory resources. So the neuroscientist Sam Harris says, and I think I quote, he says, "There is no description of the micro events that make the emergence of consciousness understandable. No frequency of neurofiring seems even relevant. None of it matters." And then he goes on to borrow my favorite line from Terence McKenna, where he says, "If you believe that, it is the limit case of extreme credulity, meaning if you accept that, there's effectively nothing you'd be rationally justified in rejecting. So either we believe that a theoretical abstraction like matter did the sufficient amount of cartwheels to produce something completely unpredicted and unrelated, or we believe the far simpler and far more ancient wisdom that consciousness is fundamentally an integrated whole. And
All right. So it seems like he's more or less arguing against physicalism, not atheism. What do you think, Sophia, about his argument so far?
I'm sorry I didn't catch all of it. It's glitching really bad on my end. So sorry, can't even tell you.
Oh boy. Do you want me to back it up a little bit?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, but there's a big
No, that's
lag
fine.
though.
Just keep going. Don't let me interfere with the show.
Okay.
My
Okay.
technical issues.
All right.
tends to undergo spontaneous
get the hell up
episodes
outta
of
here, then.
dissociation. And you and I would merely be the dissociative alters within that field. So here's what's dope about that, right? Here's what's dope about the consciousness's fundamental starting point. It's that everything else needed for God naturally falls into place with that assumption. Consciousness becomes the unmoved mover or the unactualized actualizer, meaning all things which have potential would rely on this being for the actualization of that potential, rendering the being all powerful. Consciousness would also be the locus of all propositional knowledge, procedural knowledge, perspectival knowledge, and participatory knowing, which would mean that consciousness is omniscient. It would be the integrated state, in the integrated state, in consciousness's integrated state. It would recognize no distinction between itself and you or me, but would exist in a state of pure association, which would make sense of the associative behaviors that human beings call love. This would render the being omnibenevolent, right? So we can keep going, but I'll turn it over now. Simply and finally, the omnipresent, omnibenevolent, omniscient, omnipotent being from which the universe emerges is what I call God.
All right. So it looks like he's defining God as something that would fit the omni properties. But the same thing could be said about a physical universe concept. Like even an unconscious universe could fit all of those descriptions, I think. Right? So I don't know if that necessarily, I think it's underdetermined. There's an underdetermination going on possibly. But if you define God that way, then you could be a pantheist maybe, or a panentheist, or an idealist, and you're just defining the fundamental thing that explains everything as consciousness, and that's what we call God. We can do that with anything. It's called defining things into existence, which I guess you can do. It's just a linguistic thing. It's semantic. So it's one of those arguments that causes me not to identify as a theist. Because if I did, I would just be reifying nature is all I would be doing. And this whole business about consciousness is more fundamental than physicalism. Well, consciousness and physical things are both concepts of nature. They're not concepts of some God. Maybe a being in the sense that an ontological is, like an isness of some kind. You could say it's a being in that sense, but so is the universe. So it really just, these all kind of turn into semantics. And Nell, you say this atheist probably is coming from a materialist viewpoint, but I'd say this can easily overlap with idealist thinking, depending on where your idealism is coming from. Exactly. And it's that semantical problem. The language is what really causes that overlap. You know what I mean? Because we can easily turn terms, define terms, and use terms certain ways to make the same cases for each other. It just depends on the words we use. So anyways, I'll keep on going.
That I'll yield my remaining time, and looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much. We'll jump into the open dialogue. Folks, if it's your first time here at Modern Day Debate, I'm your host, Dr. James Coons. We are a fully neutral platform hosting debates on science, religion, and politics. Hit that subscribe button right now. We have many more debates coming up. In fact, if you haven't heard
Keep going.
for debate content,
See any objections?
Let me get back here.
it's going to be a vicious.
Your view, I guess you're some sort of idealist.
Yeah.
Maybe let's compare two theories. Okay, a theory where, let's say, what's fundamental is physical, and a theory where what's fundamental is not physical. Let's say ideal or conscious. Fine. Let's sort of assume there is a dichotomy between the mental and the physical. I don't really see any objections here tonight as far as why you couldn't have an object that is both mental and physical. But let's suppose there is that kind of dichotomy. And so here on your model, you have the conscious stuff that gave rise to the non-conscious stuff. Now you want to say that there's magic there, probably because it's that
No. The other way is the magic.
Okay, why wouldn't, so you're saying going from physical to non-physical is magic, but going from non-physical to physical isn't magic?
Right, because the physical would then just be what the non-physical appears to be after dissociative processes.
Right. So on idealism, they're both of the same category. The physical is just the label we put on the objects within consciousness on idealism. And so there's no explanatory gap. They're all relational. They all fit relationally intact. It's like there's no problem saying that wetness comes from H2O or water comes from H2O, because that combination of physical things emerges into a whole other physical thing. There's a relation there, physical things to physical things. So on idealism, consciousness isn't that same physical thing. It's a different category altogether. So there is an explanatory gap when you say physical things emerge into non-physical things. That would be a gap that would need explanation, is what he's getting at there.
Instance, if I were to ask my 5-year-old to draw sadness, she would draw a frown with a tear. We know that that's not what sadness is. It's just what it looks like, because we can't interact with all the complexities that are sadness. We can only deal with the image.
I guess I don't understand. So when, let's say on your view, God spoke and there was planets, is that magic? It's not on your view.
Okay. Hey, Sophia, are you able to hear okay?
Yeah, I had to switch to my handset for some reason. My laptop is not handling it today.
Okay. Well, we can hear you good now. No lag, it seems.
All right.
So
Still?
no lag at all. So do you want me to
Okay.
do you want me to back up the video a little bit?
No, I was listening. I had it pulled up.
Okay. So what do you think about the idealist and the atheist argument so far?
I mean, I haven't heard much of the atheist. I did listen to the Mr. Biscuit, and it kind of sounds like I agree with him as far as saying that it's really not a leap to say that consciousness basically creates the physical. It's just that we call it the physical, but like in my model, the physical properties are just part of consciousness. It's just the way that it expresses itself. So it doesn't seem like a magical leap, you know? So I kind of agree with him, sort of.
Yeah, there's no category
I wouldn't say
gap.
it's proof. Right. I wouldn't say it's, absolute proof, but it's not really as magical as to believe that, somehow consciousness just emerges out of complex arrangements of matter. I don't think that's true. I think that is a magical leap right there,
Right.
So his view, it's more coherent in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Because it's like saying that something comes from nothing. Like matter has no, according to the definition of matter, it has no consciousness. So where is the consciousness popping out of? Nothing. And that's magic.
Well, they would say they would say complexity of matter, but I mean, we can't recreate that. There's no proof for that. We don't really see that happening because there are other things that are complex and we don't see a consciousness emerging from it.
Right.
So what's the difference? And then if you say, well, it's because of the brain, we also have examples of consciousness without a brain. So where we go from there, it's just always a dead end.
Exactly. Or maybe this atheist guy might come along and say, well, maybe there's a consciousness particle. There's a consciousness particle we haven't discovered yet. But it's like, what would that look like, though? It's a consciousness particle. So what would a consciousness particle look like? It seems like it would just look like any other particle, like all particles.
Right. I'm not sure about that one.
Yeah. That's going to be funny. Hold on.
I don't hold to a literalist interpretation of Genesis, if that's what you're asking me.
No, look, from your view, God's creative intention gave rise to things like planets, hydrogen, helium.
I never said that God had intention. I think that God's agency would frustrate his omniscience. Why would
did God intentionally create?
No. And intentions would be for beings that need to make blueprints and plans. I'm a mystic.
Okay. You mean like by intention, you interpreted me as like planning or something like that. Correct. I mean like desired, right? Like God desired to create, right?
No. If God had desires, he wouldn't be fulfilled. And God is the greatest conceivable being. If God had desires, I could conceive of a greater being, namely a fulfilled one.
So God does not have intentionality?
God is not an intentional being, no.
So God doesn't want anything. He doesn't believe anything. He doesn't intend to do anything. He doesn't desire anything.
If God wanted to intend something, he would have to dissociate from his all-knowing self and do something like you. You're in a state of becoming, as am I. So in order for God to have desires, he would have to empty himself of his fulfillment.
Okay, so that's it. It seems like I didn't really know if I got a straight answer. Maybe I misunderstood you.
Sure.
God doesn't have any wants, desires, intentions, beliefs, doesn't have propositional knowledge, nothing like that.
Well, it depends on what you mean by have. Like, once again, I believe that God is fundamental, and beings like you and I are emergent from that fundamental field of consciousness. So you could say God has intentions if you mean that God sometimes does something called Dan, and God does something
called what?
Your name is Dan, right?
Oh, yeah, Dan. Okay, yeah. But
yeah. So you're something God is doing right now. So you are emergent.
I don't know
God.
what that means.
See, the problem when you talk like that, materialists, that's way over their head. When you start talking like that, it sounds crazy to them.
Yeah, because I mean, he could be wording things slightly differently. I know what he's trying to say. He's basically just saying that consciousness expresses itself through physicality, through a Dan, a Scott, a Sophia, whatever. You know what I mean? It's just what we would describe as one light beam that fractures into multiple color spectrums once it passes through us. A spectrum. Once it passes through a spectrum, you get multiple different colors. So the colors, even though they seem to be individual colors, they all come from one stream. And that's basically what he's saying. He's saying God is consciousness that expresses itself through physicality. Now, I don't know if I agree with him as far as intention goes. Maybe there's at the very least, an instinct, some type of instinctive drive. But I don't know. I don't know if I agree with the whole no intention or non-intentional.
And I'm also not
debating
sure
that.
And I'm not sure how this gets back to the Christian God either. Like, it seems like you're going to have to do a lot of backflips and pretzel logic to make Christianity fit into this.
So does he actually believe in the Abrahamic God, or is he some kind of secular Christian?
He had said at the beginning that he's a Christian mystic.
Yeah, I don't
So,
know about all that. I mean, you could technically say, yeah, God is consciousness, or if you're talking about consciousness, that is God to him, but that does not fit into the Abrahamic religion. So
right.
we'll
Because
have to see how.
it's non-dual, and Abrahamic religions are very dualistic in their language,
Right,
intentionally, you know. But
right.
anyways, I'll keep on going.
I don't know
you-
what that means.
Think of dissociation, right? Are you familiar with the concept of dissociation?
Is that like a term in psychology? Like I dissociate from my parents, or what?
Think about like dissociative identity disorder.
Okay.
That would be like multiple personality syndrome. You've heard of that.
Okay.
So the real you has a bunch of dissociative alter egos. You've heard of this phenomena?
I don't know very little about it. I mean, I've seen movies, like that movie with the guy with the split personality disorder. I've seen that. Does that work? Can I use my
Everybody goes through
what
that
I gathered
movie.
from that? Because I'm no psychologist.
Sure.
So I don't even think these people really believe in that either. So that might not even be a good example, because
I mean, that's not a matter of belief. That's documented fact. People, dissociative identity is a real thing. Girl, if you don't stop making all that noise with that bag, get out. Shit.
get out of here, you're bothering me, kid.
You over there just digging in the cookie bag and fucking like, excuse you, child of the
Child.
court.
I said child.
But yeah, I think he's kind of feigning ignorance right there. The atheist, he wants to act like he don't know shit about it because it may actually prove a point.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, because it is a thing. It's not like made up shit. That's a real condition,
Yes,
So
I'm
yeah,
sure he knows that though.
Yeah, he probably just give him a hard time. Put him on the defense because he doesn't want to catch the ball and play ball back. He wants him to keep throwing the ball back.
Yeah.
Yeah, old trick.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is something akin to DID, dissociative identity disorder. God dissociates. So there is a whole, and then we emerge.
Sounds like a
whole.
mental problem.
Yeah, it does, and it would be from our standpoint.
God has mental problems.
The reason I wouldn't call it a problem is because God doesn't have an agenda. The reason DID would be a problem for me is because I have goals that I would fail to accomplish because of that problem. God doesn't have any goals, like we said before.
Okay, let's try to bypass some of this. Okay,
would you
still think that God is?
Wait. Why does he want to bypass it? I think he's making.
See,
a good point.
I wouldn't agree with that either. I mean, I wouldn't agree with that either. Because honestly, dissociative identity disorder, it can actually be pretty dope if you think about it. Because if you have a whole system within yourself and you have all these personalities that have different abilities, I mean, imagine your potential and the things that you could actually do. Because like one person is an architect, the next person may be some other kind of genius. Like the potential that's within you through that system is actually pretty good. Fascinating.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of autism, being on the spectrum. A lot of people sometimes they look at that as a weakness or a problem or of some kind, but maybe it's actually just the strength. It's just different,
Yeah, but I guess it would be a problem if it's like a personality that's out, I guess it becomes a problem because a lot of those personalities can oftentimes like be oppressive or try to take the forefront in a way that's negative to your life, so I guess that would be a problem. But really I've heard of success stories.
Go ahead.
I've heard of success stories where people with DID, become aware of each consciousness or each alter. And once they become aware and can successfully integrate them, they become in control of them. And so in that way, they can use these alters when needed or as needed in a productive, positive way. And so I guess there's a good side and a bad side to it, depending on your level of awareness of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But also the theist makes a good point when he says that that's just assuming that God is like us, though. Like these things may get in our way because we have personal goals and things we're trying to achieve, and this DID becomes a disorder because it frustrates us as humans. But when you're thinking about nature, it's not trying to do anything. It doesn't really have the same kind of goals and metaconscious sort of states. It just is what it is. And so when it fractures off, it doesn't care. It's like saying, if I break my arm off, it's going to be horrible for me. But if I break a rock off into pieces, rock doesn't care. A rock is just a rock.
How do
we're
you know it
trying to-
doesn't care?
well, I know, but I'm just at the thought experience. His point is that way, but
I'm
and I
saying,
think,
like,
yeah,
it's all about integration. We're basically told what to do in our lives. When we're born, we're told you should do this, you should have a social security number, you need to fit into the system, you're supposed to have a white picket fence at some point, get married,
Mhm.
settle down. We're basically told everything to do, right? And what, like, parts of us may not even be in agreement with that. We probably all have mini alters that would like to do different things. And so I think it's all about integration and knowing yourself fully. And each altar could represent an aspect of yourself, that wants to come to the forefront. So I think that there is an intention, but the intention is always wholeness and integration.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right,
That's just
keep
my
going.
take on.
No, that's good. I like that a lot, actually.
Are you familiar with the concept of dissociation?
Is that like a term in psychology? Like I dissociate from my parents, or what?
Think about like dissociative identity disorder.
Okay.
That would be like multiple personality syndrome. You've heard of that?
Okay.
So the real you has a bunch of dissociative alter egos. You've heard of this phenomena?
I don't know very little about it. I mean, I've seen movies, like, that movie with the guy with the split personality disorder. I've seen that. Does that work? Can I use what I gathered from that? Because I'm no psychologist.
Sure, yeah. But what I'm saying is something akin to DID, dissociative identity disorder. God dissociates. So there is a whole, and then we emerge.
Sounds
from
like a
whole.
mental problem.
Yeah, it does, and it would be from our
God has
standpoint.
mental problems.
The reason I wouldn't call it a problem is because God doesn't have an agenda. The reason DID would be a problem for me is because I have goals that I would fail to accomplish because of that problem. God doesn't have any goals, like we said before.
Okay, let's try to bypass some of this. Okay,
would you
still think
mind,
that God is
because this is an open dialogue? I did have some questions for you too, if you don't mind. So can we go back?
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, go ahead.
You said compare God existing versus atheism. I think that atheism tends to fail to answer the only question that really matters, namely, what is consciousness, right? It's the only thing we know for sure exists. Everything else could be an illusion. Consciousness can't be doubted, and it can't be an illusion. And yet the presumption on atheism, it seems, is that there is some non-conscious stuff which magically becomes conscious stuff. And I'm wondering, how do you believe that atheism is a better explanation than theism, given that atheism fails in answering the only question that matters?
But atheism isn't supposed to explain any of that stuff. Atheism is just a response to one question, the God question, right?
It's not really even a response. It's just that you don't believe, and that's fine. That may not be sufficient for him, but like you said, it ain't meant to answer your questions because obviously you're a theist.
Right. So the consciousness thing seems to be a whole other argument. Like that's about physicalism. There's a lot of theists who are physicalists too. In fact, most theists I know are materialists. They're dualists. They just believe that there's the material world and then there's the spirit world that that God lives in, and the angels and the demons. Like there's two different worlds, but the world we live in is matter. the world of material. So you can
Right.
be a physicalist and be a theist, you know. So I'm not really sure how these arguments prove theism.
Yeah,
know.
me neither.
What is consciousness and how did it get here?
Yeah. So I don't take atheism to be an explanation in itself. Okay. What I was saying earlier in my opening statement is that there are explanations that are both compatible with theism or atheism, and then there's some explanations that, you know, I guess you could call those atheistic explanations insofar as that you can have that explanation without God, right? But atheism is just the view that there are no gods.
But how? Oh, well, I mean, I would say that in categorical logic, at least, atheism would be the affirmation of a universal negative. You're actually affirming something. You're saying there are no gods, because in order—
Not necessarily. Like that's maybe a philosophical hard atheism, but you know, words are there's no intrinsic meaning in words and labels. So someone could just mean that they don't believe in God. They're agnostic about it. Therefore, they don't believe in God. So it gets so semantic in these debates sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Christians are atheists for the 1,000 other gods in human history. Exactly, you know.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. Christians believe in Thor? No, of course not.
to be an atheist,
Yeah, that's
No,
what I said. That's just what I said. The point is that it's not a positive, substantive worldview. It's a denial of a worldview. It's not supposed to. So if I'm an atheist, and then someone asks me, well, how did the first cell come along, right? Well, all atheism tells you is that it's not God, but it doesn't posit an explanation for why, in fact, the first cell arose. Right? You need to do more work, right? Atheism is a non-substantive worldview insofar as it denies your worldview, right?
Okay. Yeah, I think I see what you're saying. You're saying like atheism is just a negative.
See, that's where he got him, because he's just trying to play, you know, everybody's trying to play word games, you know, and that doesn't work though. So I don't know. It's like, you know, you could look at consciousness as if it was a god or not. Like, how do you prove that? How do you prove it? It's just, that's your concept. That's your imaginary idea, you know, and it might make sense to you, but it doesn't make sense to everybody.
All depends how you define God. Like me personally, if I were to say, like, I really don't care if you would call it God, because
Right.
all God means to me would be what's supreme, what's primary, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got the conscious community that calls it the most high, you know, and all that means is what's the underlying reality, what is foundational to reality. So if you if you translate it like that or interpret it like that, yeah, I wouldn't have an issue with it. But once you attach it to some sky daddy Bible God or whatever kind of Abrahamic God, then that's a problem, because you're turning it into a human person at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that just doesn't make sense. That has nothing to do with an underlying foundational reality that has everything to do with making man-made rules and calling it God, you know?
Right. That sounds like a power move.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a denial of your view.
Sure. Yeah, and the reason I think that theism makes sense is because either what's fundamental is a conscious being or it isn't. And if it's
Well,
not,
some theists, not all theists think that, even, you know, the more traditional ones, right?
Right.
This notion of fundamentality is kind of controversial, right? You know, do by fundamentality you mean first cause? Do you mean something else, right? But all theism is just the belief that there are gods, or at least one God.
Right, but what do we mean by that God? We mean an omniscient, omnipresent, omnibenevolent, typically all the omnis, right?
Well, I take that to be a conception of God. I'm fine. I mean, If that's what you mean by God, that's fine. I mean, I want to include the pagans, or sorry, maybe that's not PC. The Greek polytheists, right? The Egyptian polytheists. Those people are theists, I would say, right? But they don't have your take on what the divine is, right?
I think what you're saying is fair, and I don't want to talk past each other. So if I were to say I believe in omnibenevolent, omnipotent, omniscient creator of the universe, right? Would that suffice for going forward for what we mean by God?
So if that's what we mean by God from now on, we'll use the terms you the way you want to use them, and that's very standard what you just offered, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what about it now? Why should we think that there's such a thing?
There you go. So I would start by saying it's far more rational and far less magical to say that consciousness is fundamental than that it emerged from non-conscious stuff. Because, as Sam Harris put it, that is the limit case on incredulity. If you believe that something unconscious did a sufficient amount of cartwheels to create, the taste of chocolate or the feeling of heartbreak, even though there is nothing about the properties of matter that would predict that, there's nothing that you shouldn't believe in as a result of that.
So what do you think about that argument? Is he still?
Nope, I agree with him. He's right. He's explaining the hard problem of consciousness, qualia, and he's right about that. I agree with him.
And so, and it seems like he's saying on the physicalist assumption doesn't explain those things, which is most atheists are physicalists, is his thing. And so therefore theism better explains it, because theism at least grants that God is a conscious being, whether you want to call it just an instinctual kind of God, or the God that smites the Philistines or whatever. It still has more explanatory power than, say, physicalism, because of the conceptual gaps and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to define God like he did, and it's just consciousness, and you break it down to consciousness being fundamental, then I will agree with him. I think it's a more coherent, logical argument and less of a magical leap than to say, oh, you put a bunch of pipes together, you get more consciousness.
Because that's all the brain is a connection of connections, pipes.
Yeah. The more pipes, the more consciousness.
Right. That's the story.
So maybe I didn't gather everything that you said. Theism is more likely true because it's less magical?
No. What I said is, let's start with consciousness, which is the big thing. Like, the hard problem of consciousness is like always top two scientists' most difficult to answer question, next to like, what is dark matter? Right. So the hard problem of consciousness is a hurdle that it would be nice to, not have as a part of your worldview.
But the hard problem of consciousness seems to be a problem for physicalists, right?
And you're right. Like, not every atheist is a physicalist.
Yeah.
But would you agree that the majority of atheists are not going to say that fundamentally there is a conscious being which gives rise to, and by being I just mean isness. That's what being means.
Yeah. Well, there's not. Yeah. Most atheists are not going to say that there's a mind out there that created the universe and has the sort of properties you listed out, right?
Well, mind is emergent from consciousness. I think mind is more correlated with brains and is a bit more limited. But an atheist typically isn't going to say a conscious being gave rise to the universe, right?
Well, so I'm fine to say, there's panpsychist views that I'm fine to say that they're compatible. It's compatible with atheism.
Philip Goff does pretty bad in debates. You're talking about constitutive panpsychism?
It's just not, the point is, it's not clear that you go from panpsychism to theism. It's not clear at all.
Well, I'm not a panpsychist. I'd be more like you said, an idealist.
I'm giving you presumably a view that it takes consciousness to be in some way fundamental, right? I think that they accept that, as far as I understand panpsychism. But that's panpsychism, as I see it, does not imply theism nor atheism.
Well, I mean, the panpsychist is going to say that consciousness is matter, something like that. Right?
But there's what do they say that is fundamental?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, so panpsychists will say that both consciousness and matter are both fundamental, that they came up at the same time. But
Kind of like my
that's,
model says.
yeah, but the only problem is like, what is matter though? Because like matter has a limit, the Planck scale. And so does consciousness kick in at the Planck scale along with the matter, or that's the question. And then even beyond the Planck scale is just an abstraction we use to describe things that we can sort of talk about possibilities distribution, I guess, in quantum mechanics. It gets all weird, but it's all
To
abstraction.
me, it's more like, you know, consciousness is more like, I mean, the physical material, whatever, is more like a slow crystallized frequency, you know, so it's not that it necessarily is something different. It's just a different state of the same thing.
Yeah, I think what's beyond matter and consciousness is some sort of reality that encompasses both those things. So if we were to come up with a theory of everything, you would have to get consciousness and matter and all that stuff out of it. So whatever it is below the Planck scale, the point that we can measure should be able to account for consciousness. But consciousness, the thing that's different about that though, is that all of our abstractions and theory making and model making all happens within consciousness. So it may just be an impossible thing. Like Examusic said that the hard problem is like a reflection of bad language or something like that. I kind of agree in a way, because even though it is a real problem on materialism, it's a problem because it smuggles in materialism. That's the problem. When you assume that consciousness has to come out of matter, well, you're just creating a contradiction for yourself. And so you'll never solve. No wonder it's a hard problem, and it'll never be solved, in my opinion, because
I agree.
you're asking a bad question. You're asking a dumb question.
You're asking it's a false premise to begin with, so you're not going to get anywhere. And I think that idealism, at least some versions of it, eliminate that issue, you know, by seeing matter as a crystallized conscious frequency, which just simply means it's a stabilized, slowed, and patterned state of consciousness. And so with that being said, if consciousness is primary, it already has within itself the physical potential. You know what I'm saying? And then frequency just becomes a mode of expression, which frequency is physical, right? It already has physical properties, so there needs to be none of that. That's just more coherent. I mean, to me, it is.
Exactly. And Mavis 999 says, no, consciousness is an emergent property of brains. Well, prove it.
So they say, but
I would invite, after real soon here, I'm going to put an invite link. What's going to happen is if you did come on, all you're going to end up saying is, well, I don't know exactly how it's emergent, but it just is. Trust me, bro. That's what it's going to end up being, because you're not going to know how consciousness emerges from the brain. No one has.
He'd be the first.
Yeah, you'd be the first one to do it. And you're more than welcome to come on the stage if you really think you can make that case. You can't. There's no evidence for that. There's no evidence for consciousness in the physical world, period. We only know consciousness first person because we experience it.
That's right.
And, yes, biological systems, other animals like jellyfish also seem to have consciousness without a brain, but part of their biological systems, ours is not just brain, but entire nervous system, right? But again, that's a correlation, not a causal factor. Maybe in my view, I think it all works together. I think that it's not just biology, but there's some underlying pattern of intelligence beyond it all. Something.
Yeah, we say what we're saying basically is that matter is not something other than consciousness. You know, we're saying that it's consciousness at rest, or more precisely, consciousness locked into a stable resonance of patterns, kind of like what we see in Michael Levin's work.
Right, right. Exactly. And usually materialists, when they define consciousness, they always do the identity theory fallacy. They'll simply redefine it as something else. Oh, consciousness is just the brain. Oh, consciousness is just the nervous system. Oh, consciousness is just the process. Or it's always something other than what it is. It's always something else. Then why even have the word consciousness? Why not just use brains? I'm brain today. It's like,
Yeah,
no, there's an
we
aspect.
can't
that
just
we're
start
talking about.
redefining shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like when people do that to fit their argument. They just rearrange and redefine words, and yeah, I don't get down with that. Let's just stick with the general consensus on the definition of consciousness and go from there.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that first person experience, and you can't get that out of third person observation. It's like you're trying to look into the screen for an object that explains your experience of the object itself. It's backwards. It doesn't really work, in my opinion. But you're more than welcome to come on the show and make the argument. I'd love to hear it. But I'm going to keep on going. We're almost finished with this. Well, actually, we got a long way to go. I'm going to put this up here. I don't know where this is going. Start in the middle somewhere.
Justify why would we spend time on this?
I thought you wanted to move on. If you want to move on, change
Okay,
the subject. Assertion was, according to most neuroscientists, there is no neural firings, or there's no neural setup that would predict conscious experiences. You're
Yes.
saying that's a bullshit statement, right?
Yeah, I want the citation. Just give me the citation.
I know what you want, and I don't have it. So let's
Okay,
end that
so let's
there.
move on. I don't want to waste our time if you can't support.
Why
your
is it
claim.
wasting? Why is it wasting? Do you not want to hear the end of my question?
It's an empirical assertion. Either you have the empirics for it or you
That's
don't.
what's going on here. I was just in the middle of what I was saying. You
Okay,
interrupted
what's
me.
the
I answered your
citation? What's the
question.
paper? What's the paper?
I already told you I don't have one.
can pull
I
up the
continue
paper.
speaking?
What if it's an empirical issue? Then it's
Guys,
a citation or
I was
not.
just
But go
making
ahead.
a-
I'll
I
let
was-
you finish. I'll let you
Please.
finish. But you know what I'm interested in. I don't want anything else though.
Would you mind? All I'm asking you is it your perspective that neuroscientists already have the information on the amount of neural firings or amplitudes or frequencies in the brain that produce consciousness? Do you think that that's true, since you think what I'm saying is bullshit? I mean, no, maybe it's a lie. I mean, maybe it's not true. If you're saying, no, I'm skeptical of that. But to say it's bullshit, you must have
It's
some
bullshit
idea.
because you didn't get that from anywhere reputable. You just made it up.
I said Sam Harris quoted it. I quoted a neuroscientist.
Sam Harris is not enough to substantiate. He says also.
That's not really bullshit. Like,
No, like that. You talking
that's
about
the hard
he made
problem.
it
That's
seem
why
like
they
he just
call it
pulled
the
that
hard
shit
problem
out.
of consciousness.
Yeah, and he just made it sound like he just pulled that shit out of his ass. Like, no, he didn't.
No, there's some things neuroscience doesn't know. What's wrong with that? Like, yeah,
Jesus.
neuroscience is a science in its infancy state. Exactly. So why is that bullshit? I don't understand. I don't know that.
I don't know. That's that cognitive dissonance kicking in.
Yeah, must be.
Sorts of crazy things, right? Sam Harris is not like a respected neuroscientist, right?
Oh Lord, Sam Harris is not a respected neuroscientist. Oh my God,
Jesus.
come on, man. He's like one of the most popular
According to
authors
who?
of neuroscience and philosophy and all these things. And he's a non-dualist. That's the problem. They don't like him because he's a non-dualist. He's one of those neuroscientists.
That's the one thing that gets me about some of these atheists. They're downright, some of them are downright bootlickers.
Yeah, man.
Next.
And you see that in all these groupthink type of things. Like, they have their special people they like, and then there's people they don't like for whatever reason, But can't we just focus in on the evidence? Let's focus in on what does the evidence really say and doesn't say. And let's talk about that, regardless of the who, But I noticed that they
Right.
don't like Sam Harris. And I think it's because he's a non-dualist. That's just my opinion. It might not be true, but that's the only other thing I can think.
That's
No
definitely
true
part of it.
Scotsman, right? No true
Yeah.
neuroscientist
No, I'm
would
not
say
saying
something
he
like
is
that.
a neuroscientist. Hey, listen, I'm not denying he's a neuroscientist. I'm fine to say he's a neuroscientist. He's just not one that everyone should pay attention to, right? What we should have paid attention to, if we're serious about the claim
According to
that
who?
all neuroscientists
Yeah.
believe this, right? We should
Of course, don't pay attention to him because that goes against my beliefs. You know,
That's crazy, man.
see, that's what religious people do. He's not a neurologist. If you go to many, well, he's a lot more educated in neurology. I think he was a professional neurologist. I'll look it up. I always understood that he was. That was always my understanding. But I may be wrong, but I'll look it back up. But yeah.
shouldn't go to Sam Harris. We should look at a survey, which you haven't done.
A survey.
Okay, so because I don't have access to a survey.
But don't you
That's
see the
funny.
survey? Don't you have to be conscious to look at the survey? You have to be-
Say, let's just say that it's up in the air. Maybe there are neuroscience. Maybe it's common knowledge. Maybe the hard problem isn't even a thing in cognitive science. Maybe that's not like one of the top two things that scientists have questions about, according to Scientific American. It's, maybe it's not that big of a deal. Maybe we just know what produces.
Yeah, but I'm not saying any of that, right?
So you're familiar with like David Chalmers and
No,
the hard
I'm
problem
familiar with
and
the
how
fact.
difficult that is to overcome in
I'm
cognitive
familiar. I'm
science. So
familiar
you
with
know
the
it's
fact.
not bullshit.
I'm
You're just
familiar.
kinda-
I'm familiar with the fact, right, that you don't have any sources to support your bold claim about what most neuroscientists think about how we can
Quoting the
predict mental states
sources.
and physical events, right? That's what I know, right? Because it's not like you can even name the paper or the survey where that came from. You're just making shit up.
Okay,
Lord have mercy.
not. Look, reason is reason is a slave of the passions, and I could say you could see you're very passionate on this issue. You want there to be some neuroscientist out there who has the magic sauce to produce consciousness, and so you're saying
No,
that.
that's not what this is about.
What I think is you're trying to convince the
I
audience.
just want you to support your claim. That's all I want.
I've already told you. I apologize. I don't have the.
Okay, let's move on. What do you want to talk about? This is dead, right?
You
don't
want to
have-
move on, so you.
Yeah,
tell us
you
what to
assert.
He's looking for a paper that proves that neuroscience hasn't cracked the code on consciousness. Like- Yeah, that's crazy. Exo Music, you said he's not a neurologist specifically. And then I just showed where Sam Harris is a prominent neuroscientist, philosopher, author, podcast host, PhD in neuroscience, and so forth.
From UCLA.
He's a neuroscientist. So I agree with higher evidence.
Okay, so if he is a neuroscience, and what he's saying right here is, let me see, because it's so damn small I can't see that shit. Wait a minute. Yes, neuroscience and neurology, two different things. Okay, so he studied two fields. That doesn't cancel out the first one. I mean, what's your point?
Right. Versus neuroscience. I mean, I don't know if that's makes him not because he's a neuroscientist and not a neurologist, that makes him not qualified to talk about consciousness in the hard problem. I don't know. Yeah,
He could have studied both things. What are you saying?
Yeah. All right.
It's something you can't justify. Why would we spend time?
I thought you wanted to move on. If you want to move on, change
Okay.
the subject.
So what did you want? What new topic did you want to bring up?
You wanted to move on, so you bring the topic up.
Well, if you're the one that can't support the claim, so you okay?
So
well,
you
we
said
can
move on.
return. What I want is
Man, man, what the hell? What the hell happened? Now they're fighting about it, keeping the conversation. The fuck?
is a sound argument or cogent argument for why atheists should believe in God.
I didn't say atheists should believe in God. I said God exists. I mean, atheists have passions and their reasons are correspondent with those passions. I don't try to convince people. I let them know why I believe in God. I don't want magical thinking as a part of my ontology or my worldview. And so I believe that consciousness is fundamental and tends to undergo spontaneous dissociation.
Give me the argument for why atheism implies magical thinking.
Because
He already did.
atheists don't believe
already
that what
did,
is
emergent.
fundamental is a conscious being.
Prove that.
Prove what?
That what you just said. Prove you made the
That
claim.
atheists don't believe that a conscious being created the universe?
No, that you said fundamental. Don't remember. Some atheists are panpsychists, right? Here, I dare you to answer this question. Are there some atheists that are panpsychists?
I don't know. Philip Goff isn't. And he's the champion of constitutive panpsychism.
Yep.
I'm sorry. You want me to
Right.
go
He
to?
was not always a theist, right?
Yeah, but he's a theist because panpsychism. He said that on a number of his interviews.
Oh shit.
He's a Christian panpsychist. So I think everybody's throwing blows, but no one's really landing. The only thing that the guy, he's making a good case against physicalism, but the atheist guy is not trying to defend physicalism. He's trying to defend atheism, or he's trying to get him to prove that a God exists. And so they're not really landing with each other, it looks like.
Well, no, they're having a whole shootout.
Yeah. They just mad with each other right now.
Do you have a paper saying that some panpsychists are?
the
Can you
point
produce
is,
the paper?
it's not an
Where's your
empirical
paper?
claim that I'm making, right? So there's no paper involved. The point is that what atheism is doesn't imply anything about what's fundamental. Okay, doesn't, right? It
Right. That's the thing.
I
It
mean,
does-
that is true. I do agree with him on that. Atheism doesn't make any kind of claim like that.
Right. So all of this arguing against physicalism is just kind of empty on this debate.
But again, though, like
Conscious
most
is
atheists
okay,
are
no,
going
look.
to be physicalists.
Yeah. I
Most
mean,
atheists, and most of the time they will defend materialism. So it's like they say they're atheists and they just don't have a belief in God, but then at the same time they do actually most of the time defend materialism.
just like they defend leftist progressives. You know, most atheists are leftists, but atheism in itself has nothing to do with politics. But yet you'll see that
Right.
pattern. You know, it's like most theists, a lot of theists, at least depending on where you live, are going to end up being conservatives. You know, evangelical, conservative type identities. But that doesn't really say anything about theism necessarily. It's just there's a correlation, but correlation is
Well,
not causation.
I think that I'm pretty sure that black guy's probably not a conservative, but he's also not probably like on the extreme left. So I think
Right.
that there is also something that's more in the middle. You know what I mean? And I do see or find that a lot of atheists are like radically left. I definitely have seen that.
Yeah. And Nell, you say I'm an atheist leftist, but it was my humanism that drove me to the left, not my atheism. Right, right. And because that's what I'm saying, there's no causal link there. It's just a correlation. And so, because if you think about it, there need be no humanitarian beliefs if you're like a Christian evangelical, because it's all about God's kingdom and his theocracy and stuff like that takes precedence over the sovereign individual, and so that's the correlation right there.
But see, that's why I'm always like, okay, let's just throw the word God all the way out, because I see leftism as a natural response to right-wing rhetoric, conservatism, because again, like you just said, it's all about this rigid system that this Abrahamic God demands, right? And so most atheists who lean left, they don't believe in that. They believe more in, your own sovereignty, and they are a lot of times humanitarians and see the violence in the religion, in the Christian Abrahamic, types of religions. So I don't think that they're wrong, inherently wrong. But then when we're talking about consciousness being as being fundamental, and then calling it God, we're gonna make the association with this Abrahamic violent God, and that's why I don't think we should really refer to it as God.
Yeah.
Technically you can play semantics and say, well, I'm not defining God in the same way, and God means something different to me. But let's be real. Whenever we hear the word God and religion and Christianity and whatnot, we're going to automatically kind of associate it with all types of atrocities, because that's what it stood for. That's what it usually stands for, And so that's why I think we should just throw that out completely when we're talking about consciousness.
Yeah, me too. Amen to that. It really just muddies the water, and it's like people start applying this guilt by association fallacy. They say if you start believing in God, that means you're guilty of all the atrocities of, that must mean you hate homosexuality. You must be into slavery.
There's so much negativity attached to the term that, you might as well just throw it away.
Yeah. Yeah. They done fuck that name up. They fucked that label all up.
Yeah.
There's no sewing that shit back together.
And I think that's what's happening here with this atheist. He ain't trying to hear that at all. He's completely opposed to that. It's like he can't get past the religious God whenever someone is using the word God, even though the guy has a different explanation for his belief in God. But like I said, man, people ain't trying to have shit to do with that. Too many bad things happened under that God, under that symbol, the word God,
Exactly. And what makes it worse, he also wants to hold on to the Christian label too. And that just even makes it worse.
Right.
Because it's like now you're really drilling into you're really getting into the focus of harm and bullshit. You're making it very hard for me to understand.
Yeah, we had a whole show about that. That's a weak need ass Christian. You're a freaking secular Christian, and such a thing really doesn't exist, and you really wouldn't be accepted. So why even hold on to that label? You're still scared or something, you might as well throw that out, go all the way with it.
Exactly. He's just another flag waver,
Yeah.
And Nell says a universal simple consciousness doesn't even fit the traditional definition of God. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. This is
right. I agree.
Yeah, this debate really is kind of off, it's just all off, man. I'll just play a few more minutes of it and then we'll end it, because it already kind of comes off a little off to me.
If you want to do that to atheism, I think it's an absurd thing to do. Because the thing is,
define it.
You jump from the colloquial to the academic, and you do that.
No, my definition of atheism has been consistent. It's the denial. It's the denial of gods. Okay. There is no God. There are no gods. That's all it is. You make the assertion.
What I'm saying is, if I were to go outside today, if we were to go into the street, meet up with 10 people and say, hey, I believe that there's a conscious creator of the universe, or that the universe is emergent, let's say, from a conscious being, right? What would you call that conscious being, right?
That sounds like a form of theism, but that's not what you said earlier.
Okay, if it sounds like a form of theism, let's stop nitpicking with the semantics. We can do that all day, and it's just going to waste everybody's time.
So return to the argument where atheism implies magical thinking.
Atheism tends to imply, can I say tends to? Would that make you feel better?
By atheism, do you mean people that are atheists?
Because look, Theists are weird and wacky. I'm a Christian mystic, right? That's weird and wacky. Atheists believe in magic and fairies sometimes. That's cool. They believe in spirits, whatever. But if we go down those rabbit holes, we're never going to fucking move. What I'm saying is atheists typically are going to be very averse to the belief that what's fundamental is a conscious being.
Okay.
And I think that's fair and reasonable to say. Why is that unreasonable?
Well, earlier you didn't say being. The point
I said being refers to isness.
Isness, yeah.
Okay, because again, there are panpsychism is gaining traction, and I don't see any contradiction between
Panpsychism isn't.
I don't know if panpsychism is gaining traction. It's up a little bit, like 0.5%. The last time I looked in our field papers, there's a few more panpsychism than there was, but I don't know if it's that big of a deal. But it does kind of seem that way when you see all these YouTube speakers promoting panpsychism. So maybe he's got a point.
I mean, he even had Alex O'Connor come out with it, right?
Yeah, he did. He did. And so did Annika Harris, and I think Sam Harris kind of hedging towards it, because I remember he was debating this materialist, and Sam Harris used to be a materialist, and then he started laughing about panpsychism, and he seemed to have gotten very defensive about it. But I think part of that is because his wife is a panpsychist. So maybe he was mad because he was kind of talking about his wife in a way. Maybe it's like an underhanded insult.
But yeah, so with this atheist on this show, it just kind of goes back to that, the way that Mr. Biscuit is presenting it is like a theist, and this atheist ain't trying to have nothing to do with that, that's what I keep seeing where the clash is between them two. A Christian mystic. I mean, what the hell does that even mean? You'd be considered a false prophet or some shit. You'd be ran out of the building, like, I don't understand people like that at all.
It's just, to me, I think it's psychological. It's people want to hold on to their labels. They don't want to let go out of some reason. They don't want to let go of the Christian label. Like, it's been part of them so long. Because I remember this guy, Mr. Biscuit Speaks, before he was an idealist. I remember he debated Tom Jump. And this was like years ago.
Oh.
And back then he was just
he used to be a full-blown Christian, huh?
Yeah, he was just a full-blown, and then he had that debate with Tom Jump and pretty much killed him.
Oh, well, that explains it.
Yeah,
he's still transitioning. He ain't left. He ain't left the faith yet all the way. He going through that stage where he's trying to correct Christianity.
Right. That's what I'm saying. He's.
I used to be in that stage.
Yeah. We all go through that.
Yeah. So he'll be joining the other side shortly.
Yeah. Yeah, it does seem like materialism and panpsychism are the two things. Most people are more familiar with panpsychism and they're more familiar with materialism, but a lot of people don't really know what idealism is. Just based on my last conversation I had on that one channel earlier this week, they got it confused with solipsism. They thought I was a solipsist because they kept saying, well, how can you only believe that reality exists in your own mind? Like, we have a hard time believing that. And it's like, I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
And I had to repeat that over.
I don't know why so many people automatically assume that that's what it is. That throws me for a loop because a lot of people think that.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem. That's why a lot of these debates and discussions, we kind of talk past each other, because no one's really listening. Everybody's just kind of wanting to
but
get there.
It is very confusing. It is very confusing because all it is hermeticism, really, and we have all these different labels for every little thought, in philosophy, and it just kind of gets kind of screwy. It's very complicated. You got solipsism, you got idealism, you got Christian idealism, you got panpsychism. There's all so many fucking isms, man, when in reality, like, that makes things a lot more complicated. And I don't know why people are so hell bent on all these different isms, you know? It gets real confusing.
Yeah, yeah. And that's
When you
the
first,
nature of language, you know. Language is
yeah, when you,
supposed to, you know, like dichotomies, you know, this thing versus that thing. It's dualistic.
right. And when you first introduced me to people like, you know, Bernardo Kastrup and Federico Fagin and all these different people, it's like, yeah, I kind of understood it. But at the same time, I was like, damn, why it gotta be that complicated? They're basically talking about simple concepts of consciousness, but it has all these fucking words around it that which complicates it. And I imagine a lot of people watch that content and say, I don't understand what they're talking about. And so a lot of people don't even watch it or click off of it because it's so freaking complicated. You know, like consciousness as being primary doesn't need, it's not really that complicated. It's just the opposite of believing that consciousness arises out of complex matter such as a brain, and believing that consciousness is primary is just the opposite of that. What's up with all the complications, the
And you
extra?
know, sometimes people just want like a very simple explanation for things. It's like when I was on that debate the other day, the guy was like saying, yeah, but why do we have to go talk about the Planck scale and quantum mechanics? All I know is when I look at my iPhone, it's there, it works, it's doing it. Why do I have to think about quantum mechanics and the Planck scale and all that to believe that my phone is just here and it works and it's blah, blah, blah? And it's like, you don't have to, but if you start talking about fundamental reality, then we have to talk about things like that because they're entailed in that conversation. But I think people want their
Right, but what I'm
metaphysics.
saying,
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying though is like mystics been around for a long time before any type of terminologies like these were developed in the West, you know, and a lot of people in the West, people like Carl Jung, for example, they derived a lot of their knowledge from ancient concepts. And so mystics have always observed these things through direct experience. And there was never all this like complicated verbiage all around it. The jargon is what I'm talking about, you know, like it's just too much. It's so much of it. And I think at the end of the day, a lot of people just like to sound knowledgeable and hear themselves talk and use all these big words and all that kind of stuff when in reality, it's not that complicated. I think sometimes as humans, we can become so intellectual that it's like you're too smart for your own fucking good and it kind of turns you dumb. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I'm with
Like,
Sadhguru on that one.
yeah, exactly. You clutter your mind. And like Exit Music says, the complexities of the biological brain is a mystical thing. There's no reason to look beyond it for consciousness. I would just say, let's flip it around. There's no reason to look beyond consciousness for complexities of a biological brain that gives rise to consciousness. Just look at consciousness. Like it doesn't have to be that complicated. You know, just look at, I'm just flipping it around instead of looking for consciousness within the biological brain is going to be kind of impossible. Why not just look at consciousness itself? You know, that's all you really need because actually that's the only way you know anything anyways is through being conscious. You know, precise language is better to communicate complex structures. Yeah, it certainly is. And that's always the challenge.
Well, I don't agree. I think that sometimes the structures aren't that complex. And sometimes language complicates things.
Yeah.
Sometimes language too complex complicates things. You know, it's A lot of people shy away from basic principles because of the language around it, which makes them think, oh, I could never understand that, which can keep people from unlocking their own potential because they think they're just not smart enough to learn it, because language can just kind of, make it seem all confusing and hard to grasp. So I don't necessarily agree with that.
Yeah. Sometimes we make things more complicated than they have to be. Then Exit Music says, even Jung's collective unconscious seems to be supported by recent studies in genetic memories with mice. Traumatic memories pass from parent to child genetically, even though separated at birth. Yes, amen. Like I was doing we were talking about that the other day.
Yeah.
About that mice experiment and then all of that. Yeah, I agree with that. And it's very very fascinating. You're using language.
And yeah, I'm not saying that, that we can't, I'm not saying we shouldn't use language, XC music. Of course, we got to use language. I'm saying some language is just really over the top. Like, just look at law language, right? The whole thing that makes you a good lawyer is to be able to manipulate words and fucking find loopholes, which makes the law so complicated that it can be very corrupt. And also it can create gatekeepers, you know what I mean, where other people are shut out because the language is just too complicated. And like I said, it makes people feel like they can't even participate in their own reality because they feel too dumb to be able to do so. And I think that's a problem.
Yeah,
that
can be. And I think, what was it, Einstein, who said that if you can't explain a concept that you could explain to a 5-year-old, then you don't really know what you're talking about, something like that. Like,
yeah, something to that effect.
A lot of language. Yeah, kind of like berries. It almost like obfuscates. It's like a way to fool people.
It obfuscates, and you can explain something with all this stuff. You can memorize words and explain it with all these big words and complexities, but if you can't really put it in practice, and if you don't really understand it, then what do those words mean? Not a damn thing. Just all depends on,
That's why you got to be a great communicator like me. I'm a wonderful communicator. I make it clear.
I just kind of like to break. Yeah, we like to break down shit into simplicity, because we're not just trying to reach intellectual people who have PhDs and whatnot. You know what I mean?
See, I'm trying to become more versed in quantum flapdoodle, so I can talk more quantum flapdoodle to people. That's what they call it, quantum flapdoodle. That in deepities. That's another thing. Sometimes you use so much language that all you're doing is you're just reciting deepities, things that sound so extravagant and great, but you're really saying nothing. You're doing a lot of talk and saying nothing, like James Brown used to sing about. Displacement is
all that shit.
Oviating
your ass off.
So X Music says displacement is a characteristic of human language, allows us to talk about things not present before us, like the past, the future, abstract concept, imaginary things. We can make up things. Yeah. I don't make up things. I talk about the reality. No, I'm just playing. Here we go. Keep this going so we can get some folks on stage. And I also put the link up, so if you want to join, please feel free to join us, and I'll just keep playing this.
Gaining any damn traction. Sean Carroll destroyed the champion of constitutive panpsychism, and he's moving more in a general theistic direction. That's Philip Goff, who I brought up before. Who in panpsychism is making noise?
Well, as far as I know, there weren't that many famous panpsychists in the early 2000s.
You said panpsychism is making a big move. Can you name some? Or can you produce the papers? And we talked about papers, right, for statements. Produce the survey, if you wouldn't mind, that panpsychism is gaining contemporary traction.
You and I already agree on this. Goff is very influential, right? People.
Goff
Goff, Bernardo, shut up. Bernardo Kastrup, I'm giving you the name.
Shut up.
Bernardo Kastrup has also been influential, right? Okay. So these people have been creating a small move.
No, Bernardo Kastrup's not a panpsychist, though. That's the
Correct.
Said. You know, the people really don't understand a lot of these things, and because they don't take the time to really investigate these things, but then they want to come and debate about them.
Yeah.
Won't have gods or religious practices. Yep. It's conceptual. It's all conceptual shit.
Movement, and there's a bit of a kind of resurgence of a kind of panpsychism, right? You and I agree on this, so I don't know why you're disagreeing with something that you agree with. Okay,
I don't agree that panpsychism is gaining traction. I think whenever Goff, I don't know how many Goff debates that you've seen, but constitutive panpsychism has an interaction problem that he can't overcome.
Has Kastrup and Goff popularized panpsychism or idealism? Have been popularizing it.
They're two different things.
They are two contemporary champions of that. So if you want to
say, they've been influential. We agree, right?
Sure. They
okay. So that's all I'm talking about, right? There are these characters that have popped up, right? And Goff wrote a book recently, right?
All right, Philip Goff. I love you, Philip Goff. I don't mean to,
Look, I mean, fine, right? The point is that there is no contradiction between being a panpsychist and being an atheist, right? That's all I was saying. And your claim that atheists explicitly deny, or necessarily atheists deny that the fundamental reality is conscious, right? That's not entailed by atheism. That's all I was saying.
What is panpsychism on your
definition?
Yeah, this will be interesting. How much you want to bet that he doesn't really describe panpsychism right?
I think that's when he's realizing that he may not exactly know what panpsychism is.
Yeah, you can look at his face.
That's probably why that's why they're talking past each other like that.
So do you think he's going to say the accurate thing, or he's going to describe it the wrong way? What do you think?
Depends on whether he's just going to describe it based on what he thinks it is, or if he's going to look it up. So let's place a bet.
Yeah, I bet you an invisible dollar that he's going to get it wrong.
Yeah, I think so too.
Definition
Okay.
of panpsychism. All I know about panpsychism is that the mental is the fundamental reality is fundamentally conscious or mental or something like that. It's a form of, as I understand it, similar to idealism, a form of it. I don't really know.
Yeah, I don't really know. Then why the hell are you talking about it so much, man? See, this is what I'm saying.
Exactly.
This is the same thing that happened the other day. It's like it's always, they never know what they're really arguing against.
Exactly.
How can you say something is not true when you never even understand what it is? Fuck.
Well, you were right.
And because I have that same struggle, would you mind if I just read it?
Sure.
Okay, yeah, because I have that same problem. So panpsychism is the view that consciousness or something like it is a fundamental feature of reality present in some form at every level of the physical world. In plain language, this is ChatGPT, by the way. Mm-hmm. Mind isn't something that suddenly appears late in the universe. It's been there all along, even in the simplest things.
Yeah,
right?
And from what I'm hearing, that's compatible with atheism.
That consciousness is fundamental.
Yeah, completely compatible with atheism. So
what is happening?
So, do you agree? Do you think that fundamental consciousness is compatible with atheism? I think it could be.
Panpsychism is literally the gateway to idealism, and to acknowledge that, you know, consciousness is a part of every level of the physical reality. That's literally what we're saying. It's the foundation of it all. So
Right.
what is like there is really no disagreement then.
Right. Yeah, atheists can believe in ghosts. Atheism only addresses a God. Exactly. That's the point.
Yep.
I think when you say, just before we move on, right? When you say it's completely compatible with atheism, with that, hand gesture of yours, I think that it's fair to say that, both of us are getting a little bit, stretching it a little bit, right? Because I mean, if we're talking about panpsychism, saying that what's fundamental is conscious, saying that leans atheism, that leans atheistic.
I didn't say it leans atheistic. I said it's compatible with it.
Well, you said it's it's like easily compatible. I don't know if it's easily.
There's
compatible.
just no logical contradiction. There's no metaphysical tension that I see. Right? It's just the point is that let's say people
but
like
if we're talking about metaphysical tension and all that stuff, then you're going to have to give a lot more grace to the theist too. That has to run both ways, because I mean, if we're talking about colloquial,
it's compatible with theism as well.
Well, sure. I mean, but I'm saying, I mean, we're doing a lot of work here. I mean, I just
I think we've done very little, but okay.
No, I think the theist guy, his point's not really that strong right now. Like, if he admits that you can be an atheist and a theist and admit consciousness can be fundamental on your view, then I'm not sure how he's gonna make his point that God exists.
Yeah,
or
he
whatever.
kind of lost me on that too. I'm not really sure what the hell he's trying to say right now.
Yeah, he's kind of trying to dig himself out of a hole. It sounds like you need a shovel. You need me to hand you a shovel? Get you out of that hole. Yeah.
I'm sorry, as you were. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, the point is that if the Goff and these other people, these anti-naturalists, right, win and show that naturalism is false, right, dualism is false, everything, they take a type of monism of the mental, okay, that I don't see why atheism would be in trouble at all. And it seems like your whole shtick is to show, look, there can't be monism of the physical. Dualism is implausible. There must be monism of the sort where everything is conscious or mental or whatever. And I don't see how that's relevant to whether theism or atheism is true. You're going to have to give a pretty good argument to show why atheism is in trouble if there is the form of monism that you want.
There's the kill question. So this is where he has a chance to really tie this shit together.
Yeah, I mean, and I think I disagree. And there's not really much more I can say. I think we're kind of going around in circles. If you want to say that a consciousness is fundamental worldview is easily compatible with atheism, as you say. I mean, because the thing is, we don't just want things to be true. We don't just want our side to be right. We want the other side to be trivially false. And that's the reason we stretch and say, oh, it's easily compatible. It's like, look, we can be we can be cool. Hang on, I'm saying right, but I'm saying we're shifting now from the colloquial to the academic. When we say, it's like, if we were to meet most atheists, who to be an atheist, you don't have to be a scientist, you don't have to be a logician, you're just somebody who doesn't believe in God.
So the problem, it sounds like Mr. Biscuit Speaks is trying to frame this whole conversation. He's trying to say what you need to say atheism is, and I need to, and you need to also agree with what I'm saying God is. And if you can just agree with me on these 2 points, then I can defeat you. But that starts to become a little dishonest.
I actually do kind of see his point, because he's arguing that consciousness is fundamental, and his definition of God is that, he's not saying God is some kind of sky daddy. He's saying it's a conscious being, and being just means a state of isness, right? Not necessarily a human being, but a state of isness. like the great I am. I am. That's all he's saying. And so if the atheist is saying, well, panpsychism is compatible with atheism because as an atheist, I just don't believe in a God, then that just really sounds like he still just doesn't understand where he's coming from when he defines God. Because then they actually do have everything in common, I would say.
Right. And
You know what I'm saying? Like, am I
yeah.
confused
Yeah, no,
here or
you're
what?
right. You're saying that, deal with the definition of God as I present it. This is the God I'm presenting. And so yeah, that holds true. And I guess what the
And he
other
made
guy
that clear.
is, yeah,
To be
he made
fair,
it
he
really
made that
clear.
clear in the beginning.
Yeah, he did. He did. And then Nell says, not sure why the atheist believes idealism or panpsychism would entail naturalism is false, or did I mishear? I don't know if I heard that, but it wouldn't surprise me because, like I
No, I
said, I
think he
got
did.
that
I
same.
think he did say that.
He did. Yeah, that's bullshit. Because yeah, that's not right. That's just straw man. Sky Daddy is the
Right.
origin of God concepts historically. Not sure. We did a video a few weeks ago regarding ancient African roots about God and stuff like that, but they were mainly saying that God, as they understood it, was nature, not necessarily a person, but a natural thing and a consciousness, like a fundamental consciousness. So it's hard to say if that's really true. I know a lot of ancient religions were like sky daddies, like the Greeks and the Hebrews and the Canaanites and Egyptians and people like that probably had sky daddy concepts. But
Right.
not all. Like I think with a lot of Hindu religions or Far Eastern religions, they don't believe in sky daddies, and those religions are much older than the Abrahamics, But
Right.
yeah, that is true. So let me keep going.
And if I present it to you that, hey, you know what? What's fundamental is a conscious being of some sort, right? That person is going to and the atheist is far more likely to reject that.
Yeah, because that sounds like God. But to say that
exactly, it sounds
but
like
what
God.
does not sound like God is that everything, including you, including the microphone you're speaking into, right? Electrons, everything is fundamentally conscious. The atheist is going to be like, that's weird, right? But they're not going to be thinking, oh no, if that's true,
No,
I could be an atheist.
An atheist isn't necessarily going to say that's weird. All they are committed
No,
to is
most
a lack
people
of
would say
belief
that's
in
kind of
God.
weird. The point is that most people are going to say that's kind. You're saying if you ask a random atheist on the street, right, or on TikTok or on YouTube.
Let's stay colloquial. Let's talk about theists and atheists as they exist in. I mean, unless we want to remain at the academic.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. The point is that
go ahead.
Panpsychism is a kind of strange view. It's a minority position that is taken seriously in metaphysics and philosophy land, right? Goff is taken seriously. Other people are taken seriously. Kastrup is taken seriously. But in the normal outside of philosophy land, it's kind of it's not taken very much seriously, right? Like, so if you want to go in that land, then I don't see why we're appealing over there, right? But the point is that it's whether everything is fundamentally conscious or not just has little to do with whether there's a God that loves you and cares about you and wants to have a relationship with you and created the universe.
Yeah, I don't think that.
But that's not how he defined God.
Once again, he didn't define God as such, and so he's being intellectually dishonest because he's kind of he's trying to hide an incompatibility here. He's fucking saying, well, I accept panpsychism, but I reject God as fundamental consciousness. But that's kind of what panpsychism is. It's saying that consciousness is fundamental on every level. And yet he accepts that. And then he keeps going back to the whole God thing. But dude already defined his version of God.
Right. It wasn't personal.
So right. So I don't know. Like, he just keeps going in circles because of that.
Mm-hmm.
God wants anything, but that kind of goes on repeat. I think the problem that the constitutive panpsychism has today, and one that I haven't heard Philip Goff or the answer, is the interaction problem, right?
And by the way, just a quick, Philip Goff converted to Christianity, just so you know.
I do, yeah.
Okay.
So what we know about particles is that they don't interact, they don't actually touch. And so the interaction problem is like, how do subatomic particles or these conscious entities, because Goff would believe that every single thing has its own level of consciousness, and they
why are we
come
talking about this?
Because you brought up panpsychism. Can I just finish instead of going to the why every
what
time
does it
I
have
talk?
to do with, as long as
it doesn't matter
saying,
what it has to do. Like,
as long as what you're connecting.
Here we go.
As long as you connect it to atheism.
Why
as
do
long
I
as
always...
you connect it to atheism.
Yeah, he's going off on panpsychism, trying to debunk panpsychism. I'm not sure why he's trying to do that.
He also said that it's not it's compatible. Like, I don't know. That guy's confused at this point.
Yeah. I don't know. This conversation is a little off to me. What do you think?
Well, it's off because honestly, that atheist is trying to reframe every damn thing. He's unable to honestly engage the other guy, or unwilling. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like that too. Yeah. And he's trying to looks like now he's trying to steer him back into, how does this prove God exists? And he keeps trying to tell him that.
Right.
Like,
and it's just like,
but you have to look at God. His belief in God is consciousness, fundamental consciousness.
Right.
And it's not
right.
personal.
That's all. That's his definition of God.
Yeah. So
Sorry, I think I'm lagging now.
Yeah, a little bit.
I don't know if I can even connect it to the end of my point if we keep interrupting. I don't have to connect
I just want to see the light on the end of the tunnel.
Right, but I'm sorry, you're gonna have to have faith here.
I have very little faith in this.
And that's the reason you keep interrupting.
Connect it with atheism.
Can you relax? Can I get the floor as long as I'm talking?
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah, come on.
Okay, go ahead.
Sure. So particles and electrons, they don't actually interact with one another. And so the question for the likes of Philip Goff is, how do these small consciousnesses interact to create the metacognitive experience that I'm having right now? And panpsychists fail to answer the interaction problem, just like the dualists have the interaction problem. And the materialists have the hard problem of consciousness that they can't overcome.
And what does that have to do with atheism?
It means that the most likely metaphysical position is consciousness is fundamental and gives rise to the illusion of matter.
Okay, but that's compatible with atheism. So it seems like it's not a problem for atheism. So,
well, depending on how you define God, again, he's defining God as that fundamental consciousness. So now the atheist is kind of strawman.
Okay.
try again.
No, I've already done it. I'm not trying to convince you. So saying try again.
Well, what are you doing?
It misses my intention.
Okay, what are you doing here then?
You thought I was here to convince you of theism?
I'm interested in an argument, a good argument from you for why I'm missing something as an atheist. And I've heard Zippo.
You're missing a lot. Yeah.
Right. So show me what as an atheist am I missing?
I can't. No. If I could.
All right. Debate done.
Can you convince me of atheism? It would be silly. It would be silly for you to try, wouldn't it?
I gave the low priors argument, right? So in the beginning, in my own opening statement, right?
That was silly. My entire opening argument addressed that entire thing. All you said in the beginning was that atheism should be the universe is more expected given atheism than theism.
No, I didn't say that. No. The point is that before you weigh the evidence, right?
Yeah, but his argument is before you weigh the evidence. Let me see if I got this right. That before you weigh the evidence, if if you have more number of explanations for your hypothesis than, say, a competing hypothesis, the one with most explanations are the one that are more likely to be true. So with theism, there's only one explanation, God. Whereas on atheism, there's all these different explanations for the universe or whatever, is what he's saying. So the one that has the most explanations win, because maybe some will fail, but at least there's more of a probability that one will be true rather than just one that just rests on one assumption. But I don't necessarily agree with that because, like I said at the
They could
beginning,
be all wrong. They're still all assumptions.
yeah, exactly. Like, you know, it isn't about how many explanations you have, it's about how well those explanations are supported. Like,
Right. And if they're whether they're coherent or not.
right, like
Or
a
if there's
theory can
type
always
of
be added with stories, mechanisms, narratives, but without any independent justification for either one, they're not going to add any probability to it.
exactly.
That's just my opinion.
No, I
And
agree.
yeah, and that's the atheist. That's his whole argument, is that atheism has more explanations than just one. So
Before you update on any sort of specific data to the prior probabilities, right?
Uh-huh.
You compare the explanations that are compatible with atheism and the explanations that are compatible with theism, right? And there's just way more explanations that are compatible with atheism than theism, because theism, to posit theism as an explanation, is this very specific sort of entity that explains the data points that we want to explain, the explanandum. Okay, so
But you're using theism in the plethora of explanations for atheism. I think that this whole argument so far has hinged on you saying that consciousness being fundamental is compatible with atheism. I think most atheists would
what
disagree.
are you talking about?
well, he
Do you
did
want me
say
to just
that.
repeat it, or do you want to paraphrase?
He did say that.
He
didn't
did say that.
He
He
said
absolutely did.
that was his whole point. He was saying that you're arguing for panpsychism or idealism or either one is still consistent, totally. He threw his hands up, perfectly consistent with atheism. That's what he said.
Yeah, and his problem is theism, and he still refuses to acknowledge how he defines God.
Right. He still can't get past that.
Exactly. That's
yeah,
the problem in that whole conversation.
Yeah.
In an intelligible way. What does that have to do with any of what I said?
You were just talking
And now he's
about
basically doing
explanations.
ad
And,
hominem attacks and saying that he's not explaining himself in an intelligible way. You see, I can't deal with people that argue like that, because you're the one who's misunderstanding and can't
Mhm.
even accept the man's definition of God. So now you're doing ad hominem attacks saying, oh, if you can explain it in an intelligent way, I listen. He has. You just refusing to accept his definition of God.
Now, what it is he's a black man, and he can't stand a black man making any intelligent sense, man. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, at the end of the day, we
Could
don't
be.
know his motive, but we do know that he is making himself out to be superior when he fucking talks like that. He's very arrogant.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah,
dealt with
for
stuff
sure.
like that with you know who.
Mhm.
He's basically flipping the tables. He's the one who's stuck in cognitive dissonance and is following a rigid belief system at this point, and he's refusing to let go of that for the sake of this argument or this conversation that they're having. He's refusing to step into his framework. You see what I'm saying?
That's right. Hey, Otangelo, I haven't seen you in a while, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, fine, thanks. And you?
We're doing good, man. We're just wrapping up this debate. We're going to watch this a little bit, then we'll carry on a conversation. Were you able to watch most of this debate today?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Well, we'll conversate a little bit about it here in a minute. I'm just going to go ahead and finish up I think I don't want to go too much farther on this. We've kind of are beating a dead horse at this point.
Theism. I think most atheists would
What
disagree.
are you talking about?
You want me to just repeat it, or do you want to paraphrase?
In an intelligible way. What does that have to do with any of what I said?
Oh Lord.
You were just talking about explanations and atheism having a plethora of explanations.
Did you understand what I just said? I don't mind repeating it.
So was I wrong about were you not talking about explanations on
That is
atheism?
not at all what I was trying to convey to you. I wasn't just talking about explanations. I was talking about I mean, do you want me to repeat it?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you compare atheism and theism, right,
Mhm.
there's a greater amount of explanations that are compatible with atheism than theism, right?
You can justify that.
Okay, because theism, right, is a specific, right, entity that that counts as the explanans, right?
What
And
is that specific entity? Christianity is a specific entity.
the
Islam
entity
is
that
a
you
specific
talked
entity.
about, the entity that you believe in, the all good, all powerful, all knowing entity.
Right. So
Right.
didn't you say that my explanation of that entity was unlike the theist you'd heard before?
No, it's a conception of a broader concept of God that I hold to, which makes it even less probable, by the way. It's a great that this makes it worse, right? Because it's like maybe think of it this way, right? Let's say you have a crime and you've got 20 suspects, okay? And you don't know anything about the evidence except that there are 20 suspects. Before you look at the evidence, take one person, let's call them Bob, right? Okay, what is more probable? Okay, that one of the other 19 suspects did it, or that Bob did it?
I don't know what that has to do with anything.
It's exactly my argument, right? So my argument,
What it is an analogy. I'm asking. You said that there are more plausible definitions given.
No. What I'm trying to show you that there's a general principle that when you compare a specific explanation with a broader set of explanations, the specific explanation will have a lower prior probability before you update on any evidence.
But atheism isn't an explanation. It's a denial of.
No. I never said it was an explanation. I said there are explanations that are compatible with atheism.
Okay, and there are explanations compatible with theism too.
Right, but the set of explanations that you have, right, for the data points
that are compatible with atheism are
right.
there are more.
But the sets, with theism, it's one particular explanation, right? It's an all-powerful, all-good, all-knowing God.
Right, but there's.
All right. So do you think we beat this dead horse enough? We basically know what his argument was. The atheist is saying that there's more explanation.
He's just being arrogant. I mean, at this point, I wouldn't pay him any more mind because he's being very dishonest.
Right. I don't know. I'm trying to look at his argument and see if it really holds, if it leads to what he's claiming it does. But what do you think, Neil? How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing all right. I just wanted to jump in here because I feel like, man, that's that atheist is just doing a terrible job of being an atheist.
He's doing atheism wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that they're kind of both. I see both problems, but at least, with the theist guy, he's trying to keep things within a certain framework and not deviate from it. But then the atheist guy is trying to change the framework up a little bit. But the theist guy, he seems to be saying, yeah, but when you talk to most atheists, so he wants to address the most atheist kind of thing, like this colloquial term. And then the other guy wants to shift over to academia because it's not really convenient to talk about that part. Well, if we're being real serious about it, though.
I mean, if I'm being serious about it, I'd say, though, that what most atheists probably believe in isn't materialism either, though. I mean,
right.
Like,
but
Well, maybe I'm wrong about that because I kind of thought they were, because a lot of them are pretty much physical.
I mean, I'd say that the majority of atheists who have an online presence are materialists, and so I feel like they're overrepresented of the atheist community, because
Yeah, that's possible.
I
For
feel
sure.
like, yeah, like, and I'm just this is just me, because but it, I don't have any like statistics to show you or anything. But it's like, to me, it's like the majority of atheists I've interacted with who aren't, like your Alex O'Connors or something, but just your like normal everyday atheists, seem to have some sort of like supernatural or new age belief, that they aren't just a pure materialist.
Oh, that's interesting, because my experience is
Yeah, I
just
didn't know that,
totally
because I used to be
Yeah.
heavy in the atheist community, and I've kind of always considered myself sort of a mystic, and they would tolerate my viewpoints because I wasn't really talking about a sky daddy or anything like that. But at the end of the day, most atheists that I encountered in those groups and everything like that, they rather not really, get into that either, because it could still, they still kind of see it as religious. They still like connected to religious dogma. And I was under the impression that most atheists don't really want anything to do with that. But they will tolerate it because you're not talking about an Abrahamic God. If you're talking about like, I don't know, some of these people talk about energy and things like that, they'll tolerate that. But yeah,
Yeah, that's been my experience, is that when I deal with a lot of atheists, they're usually they consider themselves skeptics. They consider themselves physicalists or materialists, and they also consider themselves left-leaning politically. So there's like certain, and I'm not saying that really has any technical identification with atheism, right? Because I understand that atheism is just a response to one question. But it just seems like that characteristic follows people who do consider themselves atheists for some reason. Not all of them.
All right, no, and I mean, I'm not sure about the majority of atheists being materialists, but yeah, there is statistics on the majority of atheists do seem to end up being left leaning. So that one does carry weight.
Yeah, that just seems to be the case. But either way, if you're going to do a debate like this, it's always good to kind of button down your terms and definitions so that you don't talk past each other. But it just seems like, to be quite honest, the theist guy did sort of make it very clear what he meant by God. Like, he kept saying he's not an agent, he's not metaconscious, he's more of, he doesn't have wants.
Yeah.
It's like it's like something totally different than the Christian understanding,
Oh yeah, no, he made clear what he meant by his God. Both of them still ended up talking past each other, but it does seem like the atheist was more guilty of that.
Yeah.
but while I don't really agree that he can even call it God at all, because like I said earlier, throw the whole word out. But again, he did make it very clear what his own personal definition is. And he was really just talking about consciousness being fundamental and as being fundamental. And so the other guy, I think, was, definitely more guilty of not engaging him in that within that framework.
Right.
Consistently, he would backtrack and fucking say things and then pretend like he didn't say it. And he seemed very intellectually dishonest, and he followed it up with ad hominem attacks and arrogance. And at that point, I'm looking at you like you're just a weak ass that's losing the debate right now. And now you're trying to compensate. So yeah, that's what I started seeing. And now I lost interest. On to the next.
I think the difference was, like, the theist was making a case for a natural God, like a naturalist
Mhm.
kind of God. And a lot of atheists feel like God is a supernatural entity by definition, which it usually is, to be
Yeah.
fair. And
And
you know, and so it's kind of hard to let these things go. Like I noticed in my conversation earlier this week on that atheist channel, they kept thinking that I was trying to appeal to supernaturalism when I was talking about idealism and the problems I saw with physicalism.
Mhm.
It's like I kept having to repeat, no, I'm a naturalist. No, I'm not a solipsist. No, I'm not an evangelical conservative. No, like, like there's a lot of baggage that comes along with some of these concepts. This is why I steer away from talk like God labels and stuff.
Yeah. And
You know?
to me the
It's easier to be a mystic because then you don't got to label yourself with none of that shit. And it kind of works, you know?
Yeah.
I'd say that the theist's biggest issue is that he seemed hesitant to be open to the idea of atheists being panpsychists or idealists.
Yes, I noticed that too because he kept saying, "Yeah, but Philip Goff is a Christian." It's like, so what? He didn't start off a Christian.
No.
And he was a panpsychist back then. And there's a lot of panpsychists like David Chalmers and Annika Harris and maybe even Sam Harris and people like that. They're atheists, you know? So it's kind of strange.
No. And I might not be a mystic, but I feel that way about I feel that way about the skeptic label. It's like, but I feel like too many people hijack the skeptic label, though. They're not really skeptic.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
They're very dogmatic to say they're skeptics, right?
Yeah.
We need to do a, you know what? Thank you, Nell, for that. We need to do a show on that. Because there's a lot, I've been seeing a lot of that lately that kind of gets under my skin a little bit. There's a lot of people out here, both on the religious side and the anti-religious side, that claim they're skeptics. And neither of these people that I've seen are acting very skeptically. They're not being skeptical. It seems like they're trying to promote a prejudice, like a bias that they have. That's the feeling I get. And I can tell by the fallacious way that they argue, you know, straw man, specifically ad hominem attacks. They start smuggling in concepts unknowingly. You know, it's like someone saying, yeah, but it's kind of like saying, if there's no big bad wolf, then how do you explain the house that got blown down? Say that again.
I say if they're smuggling it in, it's not unknowingly. I'm just saying.
Exactly. Yeah, they're just doing it straight up. It's like they're saying, well, if the big bad wolf didn't exist, then how do you explain the house that got blown down? I mean, come on. It's like, you know, it's like we're supposed to agree with your assumptions and everything. And that's the problem. Like, not everyone agrees with your premises. That's what needs to be established first. And that's what I was saying before. Like, they were like, when I was on the Atheist channel debating, they were like, yeah, but how do you explain how consciousness emerges from the brain? We know that's what happens. So how does idealism solve that? How do you deal with that fact? It's like, I don't see that as a fact.
I wish they would stop saying that we know that, because we really absolutely do not know that. And honestly, I don't understand what the constant back and forth is. Like, let's just agree that idealism cannot be proven on paper, neither can materialism. And at this point, it's kind of a matter of opinion, honestly. And I lean more towards idealism because I think it's more coherent. I think that materialism is just even more so wishful thinking, to sit there and say, oh, well, one day we'll figure it out. Well, we haven't so far, and it's been billions of years. Like, I believe in being open-minded, and sometimes even if it takes you down a rabbit hole, like, what's wrong with exploring I am Sophie
I'm-
the Explorer. You know,
Yeah.
I'm willing to check shit out. Like, let's be
Yeah.
reasonable here. You know, let's explore, because honestly, modern science is now leaning towards, you know, exploring that area. Let's go with it. Isn't that what science is all about? Because
Yeah.
because when you're like that, it's like you're creating a religion, and what we call it scientism. Like, that's dogmatic. Like, we have tried this shit and we still don't have answers. You know?
It hits a wall. It just hits a wall, an ontological wall. Like,
Yeah.
I think the scientific method is very virtuous. Like, I think
Mhm.
it has given us all the technology, understanding of the world around us, like how to really interact in the world that we experience each and every day. But it says nothing of ontology or metaphysics. It's just
Mhm.
it's just showing you functionality, and functionality is an explanation.
Yeah. Mhm.
And it's fine. There's
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing
Well,
wrong with that.
I mean, and that's why when I started, trying to take all of this seriously, and I joined you and Paul's group. It's like I, had to become more agnostic towards everything, because it's like,
Yeah.
oh, like you all raised great points. That's like, and to me, it's like you can't really be a skeptic and a materialist. It's this. To me, that's this intellectual dishonesty at this point.
Yeah, exactly. And Exit Music says, I would be a strict materialist if I hadn't had mystical visions, like experiences that actually saved my life once and saved someone else's another time. I'd love to have you on, man. If you ever want to talk about that, feel free to come on the show.
Absolutely. I can
I'd
relate
love
to
to
that.
hear about it, man. Yeah, I'd love to hear that, because I listen. Now, I know a lot of my audience may not be familiar with it, but I listen to this program called the Telepathy Tapes, which is very interesting. It's very compelling, and you might want to take a look at it. But it does show you some of the, now in a way that meets kind of my falsification for idealism, like the fact that you have a dual soul or consciousness that can float off your brain, and like in this dualistic
Load off
sense.
your brain. That's a new one.
Yeah, well, that's what they say. Like they say your soul leaves your body or your brain or whatever. Like, that's not really consistent with idealism, because idealism says that we are in consciousness, not that we hold consciousness in like some kind of container, right? So it's the other way around. But if you believed in souls and telekinesis and things like that, that seems to be more consistent with dualism, that there's this extra soul out there that is part of you, but also something else, like this dual concept. So I don't know how, but
See, that's where
I'm open-minded.
that's where
though.
that's where my hierarchy of consciousness comes in at. I don't see it like that. I see it as what we call a soul is your psyche, and psyche is just integrated consciousness, which would mean that your soul is just like a fractal of consciousness, right? Integrated into a interface system, which would be the mind. And so that's why I don't really refer to consciousness as a universal mind or anything like that. The mind is really just the psyche of an individual, and that's also what we refer to as that's really what the soul is, in my
It's
opinion.
embodied,
Because if
the mind is embodied.
yeah, that's all it is. And so the soul isn't something out there. The soul is something integrated into a human interface, so to speak.
Gotcha.
Like an avatar.
Like an avatar.
We're just all a bunch of avatars.
So yes, so when you look at telepathy tapes, the old debunkers used to come out and say, oh, they're just giving hand gestures to their kids or something like that. And then they kind of they fixed that problem. They had kids that were totally blind at birth that had no eye sockets, for example. And they could do the same thing. So there's no way that light could come in for them to be influenced by by some kind of trickery or anything like that. So the whole thing is very compelling.
Or what about the lady that what about that lady that can see things with her eyes completely closed with like
Yeah,
she
so I
wears
saw a video about her the other day. Some people tried to come out and say that she was a fraud because they say that that helmet that she wore, that little blindfolds or whatever, could not actually stop all the light or whatever. So then they fitted her with a complete light-proof fucking helmet where she couldn't see shit. There was no way for anything. And she still got all that shit correct. So
Yeah, because I call bullshit on that anyway, because she demonstrated she didn't just wear one blindfold. At one point, remember, she put on like 3 of them on stacked on top of each other. And I'm like, what kind of material was that where she could still see through it when you're stacking 3 of them things on top
yeah,
of each other? And then she did get it wrong sometimes, it's she wasn't always right, but for the most part she was. She had
yeah,
more difficulties with it being behind her, but she did get it right at times, so it wasn't perfect. And I can relate to that as a I guess intuitive mystic, because my visions are not always perfect. I just detect patterns, integrate those patterns, and then my brain interprets it and creates a visual picture. But that doesn't mean the picture is 100% perfect. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's right. And that was one of the other things she was saying, because that was some of the critiques. It's like, yeah, but there was sometimes she got it wrong. So I mean, how could she get it wrong even one time? And then she was saying, well, I never claimed that I could get it right every single time. Like, that's not part of how it works. It doesn't work that way, because sometimes I get in my own way. Like, I stop really going with the intuition, and sometimes my mind tries to fit things together to make it correct. And whenever I try to do that, sometimes I get it wrong. Like, I'm trying to do guesswork, because I get like a little information, and then I start saying, well, if this information is here, maybe I can infer the rest. And you try to do that, but you're not always going to get that right sometimes. So not all the
Yeah, it's
time
kind of
is it
like a lie
good.
detector test. A lie
Yeah.
detector test can be heavily influenced by your nerves or, things like that. It's not always going to be correct and accurate, because you could be nervous and get a wrong read, and that's just the reality of it. It doesn't work in perfection. It works based on how tuned in you are, how um like I said, like sometimes you can be under stress and your intuition may kick in, but it may not kick in fully because you're being distracted, or other psychological issues that may interfere with your intuition, or belief systems. I mean, there's so many different scenarios where you
Yeah.
can say, okay, it's not always perfect. It just
Right.
isn't. And that's just something we're going to have to accept. And then there may be some people who, just for some reason, they are more accurate. They seem to be better at it. There's different levels to it. You know what I mean?
And I think that belief or that assumption that it should always be perfect is kind of something you borrow from Christianity too. Because remember, in the Bible, if a prophet says something that doesn't come true, he was considered a false prophet and should be stoned to death. So I think in the West, we've carried over that thing where whenever you talk about stuff like predictions and things, you have to be 100% or else you're full of shit, even a little bit.
Right. But I
So
mean, come on, we could play semantics here. Like, yeah, I mean, it's all, a lot of things are come down to like interpretation, like, because that's another thing about these visions. These visions are usually symbolic. Like, our brain likes to put things into symbolism. And sometimes you just don't have a proper explanation for those symbols. Like, if I'm seeing some shit like I did before, I seen a spinning disc that was collapsing in and out of um shape, right? And I seen this like white light, and then I saw this geometric shape. Like, I don't know what the fuck that means. I couldn't tell you. So,
It means
you know,
you
I'm
drank
like,
too much that night.
you know, and it's like, what the hell? Now, but there was a different one, though, for example. I didn't know what the fuck that meant either. It was basically, just to make a long story short, there was an eclipse that we were getting ready to experience, and I didn't know about it. I didn't know.
Yeah, I remember.
I don't really follow astrology at all. Like, I ain't gonna lie. I don't really give a shit about that shit. So anyway, I'm having this fucked up ass weird dream. And basically I see this, like, it's pitch black, it's dark, and this lady, she has on these like solar glasses or whatever. And she's like, come over here while you can. And there's gonna be 3 minutes of there's gonna be light, and then it's gonna get dark, and within that window you need to jump on this bus. And the bus was like, what, a two-story bus. And I'm like, what the hell? So I get on the bus, and it felt like I was going to safety, you know, and there were other people. And I was like, man, what the hell does that dream mean? And then my godmom calls me. She's like, girl, you got them glasses for them kids? And I said, what glasses for the kids? What are you talking about? And she's like, you know, them glasses that where they can look in the sky, because she old, you know, she talks like that. And I'm like, what is she talking about, man? And she's like, them glasses, you need to go up there and get you some of them glasses, because you know them kids, they gonna look, and you don't want their eyes to get messed up. And I'm like, is she talking about an eclipse? Is she talking about solar glasses? So I asked her, and she said yes. And so I started looking online, like, what's happening? Like, I didn't hear nothing about this. And then I found out that there was an eclipse coming. And for the first time in my life, yeah, it was a premonition. I sensed it for some reason and had a dream about it. And that's exactly what happened. You know, it got dark for a minute, and then it got bright again. And we had these solar glasses on to be able to see it. And it's like the dream was already like predicting that was going to happen. So I'm not saying that that's mystical or magical. I'm saying that we are nature. We are in the middle of the experience of it. We're part of it. So some of us, for whatever reason, we just pick up on micro things, you know what I'm saying, without even knowing it. And so that can translate, your brain can sometimes translate that and create images that seem to predict something. But it wasn't perfect though, right? It wasn't something that looked exactly like what happened. It was more symbolic, right? And so if you don't really understand what it means and you tell it to people, they can say, oh, well, what you said didn't even come true because there was a woman in it and there was a double-decker bus in it, and what did that have to do with it? So what I'm saying is the symbology is not always like accurate or specific. Sometimes it seems weird, and you just really don't know what it means until it happens. You know what I mean?
And speaking of,
does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, of course. But speaking of weird experiences, you know, like early this year, like back in January, I was trying to do the out of body experience. And I told you about that. Actually, it happened twice. So the first time, it happened 3 times this year. But the first time I was trying to listen to the, you know, the HemiSync tapes, you know, and see what that would do. Because I was just exploring. Someone told me to try it. I was trying it. And sure enough, I started having this sensation of leaving my body. And it scared me, and and it felt like this dizziness, like this vertigo. It felt like I was in this I was trying to control too much. Like I just felt too out of balance. You know, I just was out there, and
it's like being unbounded. It's like you lose your ground.
And I lost you know, reference of where I am and everything, and it kind of freaked me out. And when I was trying to grab onto something, if that even makes sense in this state, it's kind of weird how you start projecting your memory of how the world works into that state of mind. It's kind of weird, but when I got into that state of mind, I felt myself coming out of my body. I started seeing stuff like I was coming out of my body, and it just freaked me out because of the feeling, the vertigo. And then I fell. I had this sensation of falling, and it was really scary. And I fell right back into my body, if that even makes sense. And so I was like,
That sounds
damn.
exactly like how
Yeah, and I was like, wow,
that.
that was weird. I've never had that. I used to have night terrors and stuff like that, but I never got to this point. And the same thing happened. You'd feel this energy go through your spine to your head. You hear this ringing, and then you kind of just intuitively know you're about to leave your body. And then when you do it, you feel this vertigo, this dizziness, and then I fall back into my body. That's pretty much the extent of it. And then that was in January. Then I tried it and I kept trying it, and I wasn't successful again until this summer, spring, summer, something like that. And that's when I had that same experience. I was on my couch, and I was walking around my rooms and stuff like that. It was really weird. And then I snapped back in my body. So it only lasted like maybe 30 seconds. And then here recently, I did it again. I felt the energy, felt the dizziness, the vertigo. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be scared this time. I'm going to go ahead and go with it naturally. And I tried, man, but I just popped right back in my. It's like I can't get that shit to work, man. And
Man, I don't even want that shit to work. Like that
scary.
shit
That's
feels
the thing.
brutal.
It's too
Because what you're describing is exactly what happened to me on the first time I did DMT. And all I remember is that exact same feeling. And I just knew I just died. I was like, bitch, you just died. And then the last thing I said to everybody was, you motherfuckers just killed me, because they basically talked me into doing it. And I was like, nah, I don't know about that, and then I guess it was peer pressure. And I was like, okay, well, let me hit that shit. And I hit it. I ain't feel nothing. And I was like, that shit's nasty. This tastes nasty as hell. And they're like, man, you got to hit it at least 3 times. And I'm thinking, yeah, that shit ain't going to do shit. So I hit it that 3rd time, and that was a wrap. And I was like, oh, fuck, y'all just killed me. I mean, it felt like the most violent fear I have ever felt, because it literally feels like you died, like done, over with, finito, and that is a scary feeling. It is, because we, as human beings in this body, we're grounded to the earth, and feeling unbounded is a completely different feeling. And I think we just naturally are afraid of that. You know what I'm saying?
It's horrible.
I know I am. Some people may not be, but
I'm not saying I'm
some
not.
people may not.
I'm just a crazy fool that likes those kind of experiences for some reason. Like, like when I did DMT, man, I remember my first time, it was like I was dying. And it was like that when I finally made peace with the fact that I was dying, that was kind of like the trigger to the experience itself. It's like it had to, it's like for some reason I take back that it's whenever I just submit, that's when the experience kicks in overdrive. And I mean, it went like fucking overdrive. Like I went out of my body into a tunnel, into the light, into these entities, into all this crazy shit. And, but whenever you try to hold on, like you're really trying to like not go there out of fear, you're never going to get there. It's only until you let go. That's when that experience kind of takes over.
Yeah, for me, it was more like, I started getting used to it the more that I experimented around with it. And it definitely has to do with acceptance. You just kind of accept it and you're no longer afraid of it. It's just that first initial time, it felt completely foreign to me. And of course, I felt like, okay, this is it. But your experience doesn't end. That's the thing. And then you're like, oh, I'm still here. It's just that you're not bounded. You still experience the I am, but you realize I didn't die. Experience continues. It's just the image of me that died. And then all of a sudden it all makes sense and it all calms
Yeah.
down, and all of a sudden it's just all unity and oneness. And so then you're like, oh, I see. It's just fear. It was just fear. Nothing ever really ceases to exist. And so you come to these realizations, and now you're like, oh, okay. And that's kind of
Yeah.
how it went for me over time. That didn't happen right away, but eventually that's how it started to feel. And that's the beautiful thing about it, right? That's the realization that experience it always continues, and your identity is really not who you are at the core. That's just how I experienced it, and
Yeah,
might
that
sound
was
stupid
the
to people,
exact
but
that's the exact impression that me and my brother got when we did it that first time. That was our very first time, and what it just kind of clicked. It's like, oh, this is what reality is. It's just experiential, and you can experience it in multiple ways, and it goes on. It doesn't stop. But you just get that impression, and you get that you understand it profoundly, like the unity consciousness experience. It's just so profound. But when you come back and you explain it to people, it's like, oh, you were just fucking on drugs, man. That's what happens
it's just
when
that
you're on
we
drugs.
assume that experience only exists in this way, as
Yeah.
human beings. We assume that, but experience exists in many ways, and we know that right here on this planet. Like, what a fly experiences is completely different from what your experiences. There are multiple conscious experiences that we can't really. I can't know how you feel. You can't know what my experience is. I don't know what the experience of this tree is. You know what I mean? But there are so many different experiences because consciousness just expresses itself through so many things, and there's so many different experiences. And each time you have these outer body experiences, it's different. There's never like the exact same thing happening. It's like you experience multiple different things, and each time though it's an experience. Experience is not confined to just this body.
Right. I wonder what it's like to experience the world as grass and vegetation. We need to do a reaction to that video we were looking at
Oh
about
yeah,
the plants and
the
shit.
screaming grass when it's not being fed properly, enough water
Yeah.
and stuff,
Yeah.
and they used AI to measure the signals, and they realized that the grass was actually screaming from drying up
And
or
communicating
some.
very meaningful content to other vegetation on the network. In fact, globally.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting, a real interesting new study. But
Or just look at how shrooms communicate. Shrooms have an actual language.
yes, they do. And
Now, me personally, I
and
did shrooms recently, and that experience was fucking brutal too. It's actually similar to DMT, but for some damn reason, I didn't like it. I can't even explain it. I'm not even gonna go into that, but it was like raw, just, man, like, I didn't like it. I did not like that. But some people love it, and I'm like, maybe it was just because I had just got out of a breakup, and that was my own inner state. And yeah, I was still grieving and all that kind of shit, and heartbroken, and the bullshit of a breakup. And then what the fuck possessed me to do shrooms in that state of mind? I thought it would help, but it didn't help. It just kind of brought out that state, like the pain and everything that I felt. It kind of amplified that shit. And it was kind of a bad trip, I would say. And I think that it had a lot to do with my own internal state. That was probably not the best time to do that. But yeah, man.
Did you hear about this latest study they did on this mushroom called the Lilliputian hallucination? There's this specific kind of mushroom. Lilliputian.
That's interesting because there is a freaking children's like fairy tale in Germany called that. I wonder what the connection is. Go on. That's interesting.
Hallucination, but It's this specific mushroom type. If you eat it, everyone has the same hallucination of tiny, small gnomes, little people that come out and talk to you. Like everybody
Are
that
you
has it.
kidding me?
And they said scientists discovered it, and it's called the Lilliputian hallucination. And so they
See,
say it's
that's exactly
consistent.
what the German fairy tale is about. It's so fucking wild.
Yeah, there's specific hallucinations of small people, fantasy creatures, often seeming real and external, not just internal thoughts. And scientists are studying that. And they have test subjects and everything that confirms that everyone actually is having the same exact hallucination or whatever. So
So it's
kinda
like a
interesting.
shared experience as long as everyone ingests it.
Yeah, that same, you have to have that same mushroom.
So if 5 people take that mushroom, then all 5 of them are gonna share in one experience. Wow,
Type
that
of
is so dope.
yeah, they will all see the mushroom people, the tiny people. They'll all have that same sort of
Oh, okay,
experience.
but they're not actually sharing in each other's experience, though.
Not that I've read, not like that, but just that they all have that kind of hallucination. You know, so they're all
Okay,
isolated.
but that
That would be interesting. Like if you got them all together, would they all share in the same? I don't know. Maybe. Who knows? You got to do the experiment. You got to run the experiment before you know. But
right.
yeah, I'm gonna have to get off here though, guys, because it's running. I'm running out of time. I got to go see my dad about some crap.
All right.
Okay, well, sorry for blabbing on and on and on. It was a great show. Thanks for
Yeah.
showing up, Nell. Always glad to have you.
Mhm.
Do you have anything you want to share, Nell? By the way.
Well, no, I mean, you say you just keep blabbing on, but I enjoy just listening to you too. So,
Oh, okay.
but
We're out there. We're out there, aren't we?
I mean, and I can, even though I can't share any mystical experiences because I haven't experienced any. I mean, the weirdest experience I've had in my life is finding out that I'm a trans woman, and I can't really share that experience with you guys. So
Yeah, that's ineffable.
But at the same time, it was also kind of liberating, right?
one of the most liberating
Exactly.
things I've ever felt.
So that
Exactly.
experience
That's
is
what it's
true.
all about.
Yeah, very true. All right, Joel says later, guys. Interesting subject matter today. Thank you, sir. And yeah, next week maybe we'll do the whole plant thing in case I can't get a hold of a guest or something like that to come on. But yeah, that'll be a really interesting one to talk about plant consciousness, if such a thing exists.
And don't forget, I want to talk about the mirror principle.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. Mirror principle. Reality checks itself in the mirror. All right, man.
All right, guys. Have a good one, man.
I've been holding my bladder, so let me get at her. Y'all have a good one.
You too. See you guys.